When they looked at you, they only saw the surface, the quiet, the calm, the gentle nature that didn't bark back, didn't fight dirty, and didn't seek to prove itself loud in a world obsessed with noise. What they didn't realize is that your stillness wasn't weakness, it was a reflection of divine restraint rooted in the strength I had built deep inside you. I had poured into you a silent fire, a strength forged not in comfort, but in the fires of rejection, betrayal, and relentless delay. They mistook your humility for helplessness because they didn't understand the weight of glory being formed within you. They didn't see the nights you stayed faithful, even when your prayers echoed with no reply. They weren't there when you were bent low under burdens you didn't choose but still carried with grace. They didn't know that every time you forgave, you grew stronger. Every time you kept quiet when you could have cursed, you gained power. Every time you chose me over their applause, I was multiplying your endurance. They judged your walk by moments and forgot that I was writing your journey in chapters. They didn't realize the reason you kept standing wasn't your own strength but mine. I had been training you in the background while they were busy counting you out. They couldn't measure your faith, your fight, or your fire because what I put inside you wasn't for them to define. They thought your softness was surrender, but it was strategy. Because I plant my warriors in places where only faith can see them bloom. And when the time is right, the strength they mocked will be the strength that lifts you up right in front of them, not to prove a point, but to fulfill my purpose. They underestimated you because they underestimated me in you, and now they will see what divine strength looks like when it has waited, grown, endured, and is finally ready to rise. Your strength is not just your own, it is my breath, my authority, my hand stretched out through your life. And through you, they will learn never to judge my chosen by appearances again. They watched the storm rage around you and assumed it would be the final blow, the end of your journey, the moment your purpose would be buried under the weight of pain. But what they did see was that with every drop of rain, I was nurturing something deeper within you. They saw the lightning and heard the thunder and thought you would collapse, unaware that I had already spoken peace over your foundation. The wind didn't shake you, it strengthened you. The chaos didn't erase you, it clarified you. Every setback they declared as your downfall became the very environment in which your spirit dug further into my promises. While they laughed from a distance, believing that adversity had dismantled you, I was silently increasing your capacity to carry what they could never imagine. I allowed the breaking so I could build you back with substance they had no access to. They assumed fire would consume you, but it only purified what was meant to remain. They thought your delay was evidence of defeat, but in truth, it became the greenhouse for unshakable confidence in me. They could not comprehend how you remained unmovable, how you kept believing, how you smiled when everything was uncertain. It's because your strength didn't come from circumstances, it came from communion. They expected the trial to take your joy, but you found deeper joy in the trial. They predicted you would abandon your calling, but instead, your calling anchored itself tighter around your heart. What was meant to pull you out of alignment pushed you closer into my presence. And in that place, deep, unseen, sacred, I expanded your understanding of my faithfulness. Roots aren't visible to spectators, but they carry the entire weight of the tree. You didn't crumble because I made sure your foundation wasn't built on approval, applause, or appearance, but on truth, obedience, and trust. And now, as you begin to rise, they will wonder how you made it through. They will search for the source of your strength and not find it in worldly measures, because your roots were never in popularity, they were in me. They will learn that the rain they rejoiced over thinking it would flood your future was the same rain I used to make your fruit unstoppable. Your flourishing will testify of one thing: storms don't ruin the planted, they reveal who's truly rooted in purpose. And you, my child, are about to show them what grows in a soul fully anchored in the hand of God. In the quiet corners of your life where no one else saw, you broke down. Not once, not twice, but more times than you can count. You hid your sorrow behind smiles, buried your disappointments beneath your silence, and carried a weight so heavy that even your closest companions couldn't perceive it. You whispered prayers into pillows soaked with tears. You walked through your days pretending to be fine, while your soul echoed with aches too deep for words. But none of it was unseen by me. Every tear that escaped your eyes was collected, every groan of your heart reached mine, and every hidden collapse behind closed doors was fully known in heaven. While others only measured what they could witness, I was watching what you were becoming in the darkness. The world saw no evidence of your pain, but I saw all of it and even more. I was moving in it. You thought I was silent, but I was scripting. You felt abandoned, but I was assembling angels around your life. You thought the silence was my absence, but it was the setting of the stage. While you were weeping in shadows, I was preparing to display my glory through you in ways that no eye had ever imagined. The very moments you believed would never matter are now becoming the foundation of your elevation. You endured nights that seemed never-ending, but they were the preparation for a dawn that will not fade. You kept going when you wanted to give up. You got out of bed when you had no strength. You praised me with a cracked voice and an exhausted spirit. And because of that, I've made a covenant with your breakthrough. They only know the version of you that survived, but I know the version of you that broke in pieces and still whispered, I trust you. I will not allow your quiet battles to be wasted. The light I am releasing over your life is not random, it's redemption. What you built with tears will now be revealed with honor. You will walk into rooms that once ignored your pain, and my presence will surround you like a banner. They will wonder where your strength came from, and they will realize it was born in places where only faith could breathe. This victory you're stepping into is not just the result of hard work, it is the reward of hidden faithfulness. I am shining light not just to show the world you made it, but to show them how. Your comeback is not for revenge, it is for revelation. I want them to see what I can do with someone who refuses to quit, someone who bleeds in private but keeps believing in purpose. You are my message to this generation that suffering is not the end, that silence is not defeat, and that pain can become prophecy when placed in the hands of the Savior. Prepare to rise, not just in status but in spirit. I'm turning what you cried about into what you'll rejoice over. And everyone who never saw your private pain will now see the public glory I'm placing upon you, not for your fame, but for my name. They didn't realize that every sarcastic remark, every dismissive laugh, every side-eyed whisper was not diminishing you, it was actually deepening the weight of the message I was preparing to release through your life. Each time they spoke about you behind your back, they were unknowingly handing me the ink to write your redemption story with even greater power. Their mockery wasn't a wall, it was a mirror, revealing more about their own insecurity than your inadequacy. I saw how they called you names, how they made your obedience the target of ridicule, how they turned your decisions to follow me into jokes shared in circles you were never invited to. You heard the giggles, you noticed the fake smiles, and you felt the sting of being misunderstood. But instead of becoming bitter, you stayed faithful. Instead of returning evil with evil, you chose dignity. And in that restraint, you were collecting spiritual riches the world cannot measure. They didn't understand how you kept showing up with kindness, how you responded with grace instead of retaliation. What they meant to wound you actually added more strength to your witness. The very ones who laughed at you are about to be silenced by what I'm about to do in you. And not in a way that shames them, but in a way that shakes them into realizing that I was with you all along. Your jokes became stones that laid the foundation for a platform I'm building. And when I set you on that place of influence, it won't be to humiliate them, it will be to demonstrate my ability to lift those who stay low in my presence. The humiliation you endured without response was not weakness, it was reverence. I saw how your heart broke when they imitated your faith like it was foolishness. I know the moments you nearly walked away just to silence their jeers. But you didn't walk away. You walked deeper into me. And because you didn't let their opinions harden your heart, I've preserved your spirit for something far more powerful. Your testimony isn't just about survival, it's about how you kept believing while carrying wounds you never deserved. I will use your past mockery as part of the melody of your message. When you speak, it won't just be words, it will carry anointing soaked in humility and carved by pain. You didn't need to explain yourself, because I was preparing your life to be the explanation. They may never admit the harm they caused, but they will witness the honor I place on your life. Every moment they thought they were tearing you down, they were actually building something eternal. Your testimony will be layered with evidence that my grace is greater than gossip, my hand stronger than hate, and my love deeper than laughter meant to wound. You are proof that I do not forget those who are mocked for my name's sake. And now, I will glorify myself through your life in a way that rewrites everything they once said. You stood at doors you thought were meant to open, waiting with expectation, praying with sincerity, and knocking with a heart full of trust, only to be met with silence or worse, with slam access that left you questioning your worth. You thought the denial was a verdict against your calling, as if the voices that turned you away somehow held the authority over your future. But what you didn't see was that I was the one keeping those doors shut, not to harm you but to lead you somewhere greater. I watched as you poured yourself into opportunities that seemed so right, only for them to collapse under you, leaving you in confusion. But what looked like abandonment was actually realignment. I wasn't punishing you, I was protecting you from roads that would have delayed the fulfillment of what I had prepared. You cried, asking why you weren't chosen, why you weren't invited, why you weren't included, and each time, my answer was the same, though unspoken, because I love you too much to let you settle for less than my best. You didn't fail. I routed you. I saw what you couldn't see, heard conversations behind closed doors you weren't meant to be in, and discerned intentions hidden beneath kindness. The rejection that stung was really me clearing the way for a path that would require no begging, no proving, no pretending. What I have for you won't come through manipulation or compromise, it will come through peace, clarity, and undeniable favor. You thought being overlooked was a curse, but it was actually me keeping you from distractions disguised as opportunities. They didn't choose you because I didn't allow it. They didn't accept you because I had another assignment. The pain of rejection was real, but it was never final. I've been redirecting you into environments that align with your destiny, not just your desire. I've been steering you toward people who will see you, not just use you. I've been pushing you closer to your identity and me, stripping away attachments that only made sense in your comfort zone. You see, when I close one door, I don't just open another, I build a completely new structure if I must, one that can hold the weight of what I'm about to pour into your life. And this time, you won't have to knock. The door will swing open at the sound of your arrival because it's in waiting for you. So don't mourn what didn't last, celebrate what's coming. You were not rejected, you were redirected. You were not abandoned, you were rerouted. You were not cast aside, you were handpicked for something higher. I know it hurt, and I saw the tears you wiped away when no one noticed you'd been dismissed. But now, I will lead you into a space where your name carries honor, where your presence commands respect, and where your gifts are received with joy. You will walk into rooms where you don't have to prove that you belong because you were sent there by me. And the very paths you thought were detours will be revealed as divine designs. Nothing was wasted. Every closed door was a step toward the place I had marked for your unveiling. And when you arrive, you'll understand that the rejection you feared was actually the redirection that saved you. They labeled you as fragile because they couldn't comprehend the quiet strength you carried. They misjudged your compassion as passivity and mistook your gentleness as evidence that you lacked what it took to lead, to build, to rise. But what they saw as flaws were actually the fertile ground in which I was cultivating a sacred oil, pressed in private, birthed through pressure, and refined in silence. Your tears became the riverbed where my power would flow. Your surrender became the space where my spirit could dwell without resistance. The areas they scoffed at, the places they said made you unqualified, are the very places I poured my purpose into. Because I don't anoint the proud. I don't elevate the ones who boast in their own brilliance. I choose the ones who know their own emptiness and invite me to fill it. I saw how you second-guessed yourself because of their criticism. I know how their words chipped away at your confidence. But I was using those moments to anchor you in me, not in approval. They thought your kindness made you easy to dismiss, but it actually made you more dangerous to the darkness, because love, when anointed, is the most powerful weapon in my kingdom. They didn't understand why I chose you, why I set you apart, why I kept pouring into someone they considered unremarkable. That's because they measure strength through noise, image, dominance, but I measure it through humility, purity, and dependence. And while they were busy looking for perfection, I was searching for someone who would say yes even when it hurt. That yes is what made you powerful. That yes is what carried the weight of heaven. You didn't shout to be seen. You didn't fight to be acknowledged. You simply kept yielding, and with every surrender, I was shaping the vessel I would use to release glory. You weren't weak, you were being emptied so I could fill you completely. They called you emotional, unaware that emotion in my hands becomes intercession. They called you soft, not realizing softness in me becomes strength wrapped in grace. You weren't broken beyond repair, you were being broken open for overflow. And now, the same mouths that criticized your stillness will witness the strength that comes from abiding. They'll see the authority I've placed upon you, and it will confound their definitions of who qualifies. Because your anointing didn't come through applause, it came through agony. It didn't arrive in a moment of applause, it was born in seasons of crushing. And now that the oil is ready, I will not hide you. I will reveal you as one set apart, not because of what you carry on the surface, but because of what I have entrusted deep within you. You were never weak. You were simply being prepared. And now, what they once dismissed as a flaw will be the very thing that changes lives in my name. They assumed your quietness meant you had nothing to say, that you were unsure, afraid, or simply defeated. They mistook your still posture for retreat and took your silence as evidence of your submission to their expectations. But what they couldn't see was the divine wisdom behind every unspoken word and every pause that wasn't filled with noise. I taught you how to withhold response, not because you lacked courage, but because you carried a greater calling. Silence, when placed in my hands, becomes sharper than any argument, louder than any shout, and stronger than any human defense. You chose not to defend yourself, not because you weren't capable, but because you trusted that I would speak when the time was right. While others rushed to justify themselves, you waited. While they demanded attention, you stayed hidden. You let the world misread your motives, because you were more concerned about being aligned with my will than winning approval from people. And in doing so, you walked in a realm of obedience that few are willing to enter. You didn't clap back. You didn't correct every false assumption. You didn't take the bait to enter battles I never called you to fight. Your silence was not weakness, it was spiritual warfare. It was me guarding your words, preserving your peace, and shielding your energy for the real battles ahead. In the quiet, I was downloading strategies, sharpening discernment, and increasing your sensitivity to my voice. That hush in your spirit allowed me to speak louder than ever before. You weren't being passive, you were being prepared. You knew the value of timing, that a word spoken out of season can damage destiny. And so you waited, you withheld, you restrained your natural impulse to correct, to explain, to be understood. That choice was not easy. You longed to be seen rightly, to be known beyond the assumptions. But instead of lashing out, you let me be your defender. And now, as the dust settles and the noise fades, the wisdom of your silence will be undeniable. They'll look back and realize you didn't speak because you didn't need to. Your fruit will speak for you. Your elevation will confirm what your words never tried to. Your silence was a seed sown in humility, now blossoming in favor. You allowed yourself to be underestimated, misunderstood, even mocked, because you valued peace more than platform. And I will reward that. I will honor your decision to remain still when the world wanted chaos. I will magnify your influence, because you chose my voice over the crowds. They will watch you rise without scandal, without defense, without noise, because true authority doesn't scream. It stands. It endures. It trusts. And you, my child, stood with me while everyone else demanded the last word. Now, I will show them what a life aligned with heaven's strategy looks like. And they will learn that the quietest one in the room was always the most dangerous to darkness. There was a moment when they saw you fall and mistook it for the end. They rejoiced in your struggle, assuming your pain marked your permanent place. Some clapped in silence, others cheered in whispers, their hearts lifting with satisfaction as they believed they'd finally witnessed your undoing. What they didn't realize was that your fall was not final, it was divinely permitted so that I could showcase the power of redemption in its most glorious form. You see, they watched the collapse, but they did witness the covenant I made with you in the secret places. They saw what looked like ruin, but I saw it as the ground on which I would build the next chapter of your purpose. I never left you in that low place. While they pointed and laughed, I bent down and lifted your soul. I began repairing what was broken, healing what was bruised, and restoring what you thought was lost forever. I wasn't finished with you, not even close. The valley was not a grave, it was a turning point. The silence they mistook for absence was actually the sacred stillness where I breathed life back into your weary heart. And as they gathered in confidence that your influence had ended, I was shaping something unstoppable behind the veil. Their celebration came too soon because they didn't account for my faithfulness. They didn't factor in the way I defend those who are crushed but keep their hearts pointed toward me. They misunderstood what it meant to fall under my watch. You weren't abandoned, you were being redefined. I allowed them to see what looked like defeat so that when I lift you, they will see what restoration really looks like. Your rise will not be quiet. It will be undeniable. The same ones who counted you out will have no words when they see you flourishing in places they thought were impossible to reach. Your resurrection is not revenge, it's revelation. It's the unveiling of my hand upon your life, not despite the fall, but because of it. You will not go back to who you were before the collapse. And oh, you are returning with greater wisdom, stronger faith, and deeper oil. The pain refined you. The fall matured you. And now, I'm calling you out of the shadows they tried to trap you in. The stone they rolled in front of your story is being removed. I'm calling you forth not just to stand, but to shine. What they thought would silence you forever is becoming the platform for your greatest release. And they will see without you saying a word that no fall is greater than my ability to restore. The ones who mocked your mess will marvel at your mission. And they'll realize that I don't just raise the perfect, I resurrect the surrendered. That is what you are. And that is what they are about to witness. They mistook the darkness surrounding you as defeat, the silence as death, and your stillness as surrender. They assumed you had been covered over and forgotten, like something discarded, no longer useful, no longer relevant. But what they saw as burial was something far more sacred, it was planting. You weren't pushed into the earth to disappear, you were placed there with divine intention, with a purpose rooted in the process of transformation. When seeds are planted, it's not a sign of the end, but the beginning of what's about to emerge. In the soil of obscurity, I was working quietly, thoroughly, intentionally. It was there, away from the spotlight and hidden from the opinions of others, that your roots were stretching deeper. While the world overlooked you, I was reinforcing your foundation, ensuring that when you rise, you won't be shaken by the winds of pressure or praise. The dirt wasn't your prison, it was your preparation. It was the covering that protected you from premature exposure, from environments that weren't equipped to handle the greatness I'm birthing through you. They thought they were witnessing your end, but I was witnessing your becoming. In the silence of that season, I was growing your strength, stretching your faith, enlarging your endurance. You thought you were losing time, but you were actually gaining depth. You weren't stuck, you were stabilizing. Everything I planted in you, hope, vision, anointing, wisdom, it was maturing in that hidden place. And now, the time is coming when what has been growing underground will break through the surface. It won't be sudden, though it will feel that way to those who didn't see your silent seasons. They'll call it overnight, but you and I know it was anything but. You endured isolation, wrestled in the dark, trusted me without evidence, and allowed yourself to be covered when everything in you wanted to be seen. That is why the fruit I'm bringing forth from your life will last. It's been cultivated with patience, watered by tears, and nourished by faith. When they see you rise, they won't be able to explain it, because they didn't stay close when you were beneath the surface. But I stayed. I watched over every moment. I kept my hand on you when you felt like giving up. And now, just as surely as the sun rises after the night, your unveiling is coming. What they thought had been discarded is about to bloom with beauty, purpose, and undeniable favor. And through it, they will learn that I never bury what I intend to blossom. You were planted with promise, and now, it's your season to grow into everything I spoke over you. You didn't see it at first, how their deception and disloyalty were being woven into something far greater than the pain it caused. At the time, it felt like a deep wound, sharp, unexpected, and cruel. You gave your trust freely, carried them in prayer, included them in sacred spaces of your life, only to watch them turn and walk away without warning, without explanation. It wasn't just the departure, it was how it happened. The silence after the betrayal was louder than the betrayal itself. You searched for answers, wondering what you did wrong, why loyalty was met with lies, why love was repaid with such cold indifference. But what you couldn't see in that moment of heartbreak was that I was using the very betrayal that broke your heart to build the path toward something far greater. I wasn't just allowing it, I was repurposing it. They thought they were ending something, but in truth, they were unlocking it. What felt like a collapse was actually the beginning of construction. I took their actions, the slander, the manipulation, the walking away, and turned them into stepping stones for your advancement. They were never meant to carry your destiny. That role was never theirs. I only allowed them close long enough for you to learn, to grow, to recognize the value of true alignment. Their betrayal served as a holy filter, removing what couldn't go with you, so that what remains is only what's meant for where I'm taking you. And now, as you rise into a new level of clarity, purpose, and power, you'll begin to see how every wound has become a window. You'll look back not with bitterness, but with boldness, realizing that without their departure, you would have never discovered the depth of your own strength in me. They may never apologize. They may never acknowledge what they did, but I will use it all anyway. That's the beauty of my redemption. It doesn't wait for their repentance to release your restoration. I saw every hidden word, every concealed plan, every act done in shadows, and I still chose to bless you through it. Their betrayal couldn't block what I had ordained. Instead, it accelerated it. What they meant to diminish you actually forced you to depend on me in a deeper way. And in that dependence, you tap into a flow of wisdom and resilience that you never would have found otherwise. So now, walk forward not as someone who merely survived betrayal, but as one who had been commissioned by it. Let it remind you that I can use anything, even the things meant to hurt you, to fulfill what I've promised. They will see you stepping into what they thought they ended, and they'll realize they didn't destroy you, they delivered you to destiny. Your breakthrough didn't come in spite of what they did, it came because of how I wrote it. And when you walk across that bridge, remember, what they meant as an ending, I transformed into a beginning. As the days stretched into months and your progress seemed slower than expected, the whispers began. Some spoke it out loud, others shared it with smirks and knowing glances, all while assuming your journey had stalled, that perhaps you had misheard me, or worse, that your promise had expired. They looked at your timeline and compared it to their own, measuring your waiting season as a weakness, a sign that maybe what you hoped for was never going to come to pass. Their mockery wasn't always direct, it was subtle, laced in suggestions, jokes disguised as advice, and questions wrapped in concern. But I heard every word. I saw the looks, the disbelief, the impatience they projected onto your life. And I watched you take it all in without defending yourself, holding on to my word even as your surroundings gave you no confirmation. What they didn't understand is that delay in my kingdom is never denial. I don't work on human clocks or earthly calendars. I operate from eternity, and when I choose to hold something back, it's not because I'm withholding, it's because I'm orchestrating. I wasn't stalling your progress. I was resetting the platform you would stand on. The atmosphere wasn't ready. The hearts you were called to reach weren't yet open. The systems you were meant to influence were still being aligned. And you, yes, even you were being refined so that when the moment came, you wouldn't just arrive, you would impact. I had to shift some things in secret. I had to remove some relationships quietly. I had to protect you from being launched before your character could carry the weight of your calling. Because I love you too deeply to write you. And while they pointed fingers at your stillness, I was preparing an unveiling they wouldn't be able to ignore. I didn't need to explain myself to them, and neither did you. Because when the curtain rises, and the fullness of what I've been constructing is revealed, the same ones who laughed will fall silent. Not out of shame, but out of awe. They'll see that what looked like delay was actually divine choreography. I was building the story with intention, layering the pieces, placing every detail with care. And soon, they'll witness the beauty of perfect timing. Your breakthrough won't just be timely, it will be timeless. And they'll understand that in my presence, waiting is not wasted, it's worship. You didn't sit idle. You grew. You prayed. You trusted. You matured in a quiet place while the world kept spinning. And now, as I prepare to present you, they will realize the stage wasn't ready before. But now it is. And you are. Step forward without fear. Because everything that seemed delayed was simply being designed for glory greater than anyone imagined. There were seasons when the silence around you was deafening. The friends who once stood close began to drift. The support you depended on grew cold, and the spaces that once felt familiar started to feel foreign. You searched for understanding, trying to make sense of why connection was disappearing from your life when you needed it the most. You questioned if you had done something wrong, if I had turned my face from you, or if somehow you were being disciplined for mistakes you couldn't even identify. None of it was valued. I wasn't pushing you away, I was pulling you closer. You were being separated not for shame, but for sharpening. I removed the distractions so that you could finally hear me clearly. I quieted the noise of external validation so you would learn to discern my voice above all others. You didn't lose people, you were released from attachments that could not carry the weight of what's ahead. There are certain dimensions of destiny that require solitude, not because you are unworthy of community, but because revelation needs stillness to grow. I had to isolate you to incubate the vision I was depositing inside you. What I'm building through you isn't ordinary, it carries weight, it carries purpose, and it cannot be compromised by shallow connection. In the silence, I taught you to stand alone. I refined your identity so that it would no longer be shaped by approval or applause. I healed wounds that were too tender to treat in public, and I reminded you that your value is not found in who surrounds you, but in who sent you. You weren't abandoned, you were being anointed in secret. Just like David in the fields, just like Moses in the desert, just like Joseph in the prison, I hid you for a reason. Because the ones who emerge from isolation with faith still intact are the ones I trust with influence. You endured the empty rooms, the unanswered messages, the invitations that never came, not knowing that I was preparing rooms for you to enter, that others wouldn't even imagine existed. Your loneliness was a classroom, and in that sacred silence, I taught you to walk with me in a way that nothing else ever could. You learned that my presence was enough, that peace isn't dependent on people, and that purpose doesn't require a platform to be born. And now, as I begin to reconnect you, it will not be with those who only like the version of you that kept shrinking. I will bring relationships that recognize your calling, that honor your depth, and that pour into you without agenda. You will no longer have to explain your process. You will be embraced for the fruit of it. So don't despise the season you spent alone. It wasn't a punishment, it was a promotion in disguise. The world thought you went missing, but I was molding you. And now, you will emerge not only restored, but radically prepared to carry what I have placed in your hands. The isolation was never the end, it was the sacred beginning. The moment they saw you fall behind, step away, or go silent, they drew their conclusions quickly. They assumed your journey had ended, your fire had faded, and your momentum had run out. To them, it looked like the final chapter had been written. They didn't realize that what they were interpreting as a conclusion was actually a transition. You weren't being shut down, you were being shifted. You weren't quitting, you were being recalibrated. I allowed certain doors to close not to confine you, but to correct the course of your destiny. They witnessed a pause and mistook it for your final punctuation. But I was rewriting the entire narrative in a direction that no one saw coming. You weren't stopping, you were stepping back to leap further. Just like a seed must fall before it flourishes, you had to let go of what was familiar in order to walk into what is eternal. The end they anticipated was just the beginning of something so radically different that only heaven could design it. They didn't stay long enough to see the full picture, and so they misjudged the frame. But I never stopped working behind the scenes. While they walked away, content with their misinterpretation, I was expanding your territory, renewing your vision, and fortifying your identity. You've been rising silently in a space no one was watching, gaining clarity, collecting wisdom, embracing peace, and maturing in grace. This isn't a comeback, it's a completely new commissioning. You're not returning to what was, you're walking into what never existed before. And that is why the people who tried to summarize your life too soon will now stand in awe as they see chapters unfold that they never believed were possible. I don't operate on human timelines. I specialize in reversals, in reintroductions, in unveiling those who were counted out too early. The end they saw was just the end of what was no longer needed. What's emerging now is refined, pure, enduring, and deeply rooted in purpose. You're not who you used to be, and that's the point. What I'm bringing out of you cannot be connected to their old assumptions. You are rising in strength that's been forged in obscurity and anointing that's been tested in silence. And when I reveal what I've placed inside of you, it won't just surprise your doubters, it will awaken the discouraged. Your story will become the evidence that my timing never fails and that endings in me are always entrances into something greater. The page is turning, the script is shifting, and everything that once looked like collapse will be revealed as construction. You are not behind, you're right on time. And this beginning will outshine everything that came before it. They thought it was finished, but I was just getting started. They gathered around your vulnerability with intentions cloaked in cruelty. In their eyes, your trial was entertainment, and your pain was a moment to pounce. They fanned the flames of rumors, jealousy, and sabotage, fully expecting you to be consumed by what they had ignited. They expected ashes, destruction, loss, silence. What they didn't realize was that every spark they set became fuel for my greater plan. You see, I never allow a fire to touch my chosen unless I intend to use it for transformation. And while they schemed to scorch your influence and extinguish your voice, I was stepping into the fire with you just as I did with the three in Babylon. I didn't remove you from the flames because I wanted that heat to refine you, not destroy you. You walked through betrayal, judgment, and misunderstanding, but none of it claimed you. Instead, it purified what I placed within you, and stripped away what wasn't needed. It exposed what was eternal. They wanted to watch you fail, but they will now witness something holy because the same fire that was meant to ruin you is now radiating through your life as proof of my presence. You didn't come out smelling like smoke, you emerged glowing with divine authority. The heat they hoped would cripple you only awakened a version of you that is fearless, focused, and filled with me. Now, you are walking with a brilliance they can't explain. You're stepping into places lit by the very flames they designed for your downfall. And every time they see you shine, it will remind them that I don't waste pain. Your glow is not man-made, it's heaven-forged. And because it came through the fire, no darkness can dim it. You're not just surviving, you're glowing in the aftermath of adversity. What was meant to erase you has introduced you to a greater dimension of power and purpose. They may never admit what they tried to do, but they will never escape the reality of what I've done through you. The fire served its purpose not to reduce you, but to reveal the undeniable glory I placed within you before the foundation of the world. And now, your life is a living flame, not one of destruction, but of deliverance. A beacon for others walking through their own trials. A reminder that with me, what was sent to harm can become the very thing that helps you rise. Their fire did not consume you, it only confirmed what you carry. The moments that brought you to your knees, the chapters soaked in grief, the memories that once haunted your nights, none of them were meaningless. You thought your pain was only suffering, a weight you had to carry without purpose, a cruel twist in your story. But I was there in all of it, not as a distant observer, but as the author who never stopped writing. Every ache, every heartbreak, every collapse you endured was woven into something deeper than survival. It was becoming a message, a declaration, a word that would one day speak louder than the pain itself. I didn't waste one moment of your agony. I repurposed it. What once felt like the end of your hope has now become the beginning of your influence. Because your pain was never meant to stay silent, I turned it into a voice, one that will echo through the hearts of others who feel lost where you once stood. You see, when you cried and thought no one understood, I was shaping a future where your story would become a mirror of healing for someone else. What once threatened to destroy you now carries the weight of glory. Your wounds are no longer reminders of defeat, they are symbols of what I can restore. The same sorrow that nearly drowned you is now the river through which my truth will flow. That moment when you thought, "Why me?" has transformed into a testimony that declares, if God did it for me, He will do it for you. I never allowed your pain to exist in isolation. I wrapped it in promise. I breathed over it until it spoke resurrection instead of ruin. You didn't just get through it, you became the message within it. That ache taught you how to pray. That loss showed you how to trust. That silence led you into the sound of my presence. And now, as you stand healed, restored, and renewed, your very existence becomes a word of prophecy. Not by speaking predictions, but by living proof. You are evidence that I still redeem, that I still rescue, that I still raise from ashes what no one thought could live again. They will look at your life and not see what you went through, but they will feel the fire that once tried to silence you. They'll be moved not just by what you say, but by what you carry. That's because real prophecy isn't always declared through lips, it's revealed through scars. And every scar on your spirit, every line etched into your heart, is now a sentence in a story I'm using to set others free. Your pain has become a prophetic light for others still walking through their darkness. And when they find you, they won't just find encouragement, they'll find an invitation to meet me. So never hide what hurt you. Let it speak. Let it point. Let it breathe. Because I have turned what broke you into something that now builds. I have turned what nearly silenced you into the very sound that will shake strongholds. You are no longer just someone who suffered. You are someone I have sent with a word, with a weight, with a witness. And this is only the beginning. They positioned themselves in your path with the intent to stop your momentum, not knowing they were standing in the middle of something I had already commanded to move forward. They thought their influence, opinions, and access could shut the doors I had destined to open for you. They pulled strings, twisted stories, and whispered doubts into the ears of others, convinced that if they sabotaged just the right moment, they could prevent your rising. But I watched all of it not with panic, but with purpose. Because every attempt they made to stall you was already accounted for in my design. What they built as a blockade, I repurposed into a blessing. Your interference became the very pressure that pushed you into deeper trust. Their delays taught you to lean on timing that cannot be manipulated. Your resistance only trained your spirit to listen more carefully to my instructions. They didn't realize that in trying to limit your steps, they were expanding your territory. I used their plots to stretch your perseverance. I used their closed doors to guide your feet onto a higher path. I used their silence to amplify your inner clarity. They tried to shrink your capacity, but it only strengthened your resilience. What was meant to suffocate you ended up sharpening your sensitivity to my will. I allowed their resistance to refine your focus so that when the opportunity came, you wouldn't be distracted by approval, but anchored in obedience. I flipped every strategy they devised until their efforts brought you closer to breakthrough instead of away from it. That's how I work. I turn barriers into bridges. I transform opposition into opportunity. They thought they had power, but they were merely instruments in my orchestration. I used them not to shame them, but to shape you. You became stronger, wiser, and more precise because of their interference. And now, I am honoring what was birthed through pressure. I'm lifting you into places their hands can't reach and their influence cannot touch. You won't need their endorsement. You don't require their permission. Because what I'm giving you is not man-made, it's heaven-released. And when they see the blessings resting upon you, they'll know deep inside that their efforts only help position you for it. This is how I vindicate. Not through revenge, but through undeniable transformation. I let them try. I let them block. I let them scheme. And then I turned it into something so beautiful they can't take credit for, nor can they undo. You are moving forward, not in spite of them, but because I used them. I turned their attempts at resistance into revelation. You learned who you were. You discovered where your strength lies. And now, you will walk in favor that confuses those who tried to hold you back. They'll look at your growth and realize that everything they did to hinder you became the reason you now stand unshakable. This is the lesson they never expected, that no weapon formed against you could prosper, and no hand lifted against you could alter what I already wrote. You are not where you are because of love. You are here because I used what was meant to harm you as a tool to build you. And I'm not finished yet. They moved with intent, not just casually but deliberately, driven by envy, insecurity, or pride, convinced that if they could just tamper with your journey, they could damage your future. Their words weren't just careless, they were calculated. Their actions were not accidental, they were laced with motives they'd never admit. But I saw them all. They planned harm emotionally, spiritually, sometimes even physically. And they didn't hide it well. Their actions dripped with false smiles and strategic silence, hoping their subtle sabotage would unfold unnoticed. But I watched it all unfold, not as one helplessly observing, but as the one who holds the pen to your story. And when they thought they had you cornered, when they believed their manipulation had worked, I stepped in not to erase what they did, but to right it. Because I am not a God who merely reacts, I redeem. And I did not let one single act of evil slip past my authority. I picked up the broken pieces of your heart and rearranged them into a design they never saw coming. They tried to rob you of confidence, and I used it to deposit clarity. They hoped you'd stay stuck in bitterness, and I planted seeds of compassion in its place. What was designed to be a curse became the starting point of a calling you didn't even see yet. And the very trap they set is now the place from which you're being launched. This isn't just about overcoming, this is about overtaking. I've given you divine permission to take territory in areas where you were once wounded. I'm flipping every painful page into a passage of power. They thought they were ending something, but I was only beginning something they could never interrupt. The story they tried to hijack hath been edited by my hand, and the ink I write with is indelible, sealed by grace and stamped with justice. I've turned their betrayal into a blessing, their gossip into your growth, their rejection into your release. And you did not harden in the process. You let me refine you. You let me turn that pain into patience, that sorrow into strength, that trial into testimony. You chose me instead of revenge. And because of that, I am pouring honor where you were once humiliated. I am elevating you from the very ashes they left you in. The evidence of my goodness will soon be undeniable. And when they see you flourishing in the very place they tried to destroy you, they will be forced to reckon with the truth. I was with you all along. They will have no explanation, no excuse, no justification, only the reality that my hand over your life wrote what they meant to erase. Your rise will not just be a success story, it will be a signpost of redemption. Every evil word spoken, every door unjustly closed, every alliance formed to hinder you, it's all been reversed in the courts of heaven. You're not just surviving, you're emerging as proof that nothing formed against my children can ever override what I have authored. And this, beloved, is the lesson they never expected. What they meant for harm, I have completely transformed for good, and I'm not done showing the world how I finish what I begin. There were moments when you looked around and wondered why no one saw you, why your efforts went unnoticed, why your gifts remained overlooked, why your presence seemed invisible in places where others were constantly praised. It felt like you were doing everything right but being completely forgotten. You questioned whether you had lost your significance, if somehow you had missed your moment. But what you didn't realize is that the silence surrounding your life was not rejection, it was divine concealment. I wasn't hiding you because you were unworthy. I was covering you because you were still under construction. There were pieces of your heart I needed to mend, areas of your identity I had to reinforce, fractures in your faith that I had to restore, not because you were broken beyond use, but because I refused to send you forward before you're ready to carry the weight of where you're going. While others were being seen, you were being strengthened. While others chased platforms, I was preparing your foundation. Because I care more about who you are becoming than how quickly the world notices your arrival. I hid you, not to hinder your purpose, but to protect its purity. Exposure too soon could destroy what has been fully rooted. So I kept you close, in the quiet, where my voice was the only one you could hear. I didn't want noise to define your value, I wanted truth to shape your identity. I wasn't punishing you. I was pouring into you, layer by layer, breath by breath, moment by moment. I removed you from crowds so I could realign your calling. I placed you in stillness so you'd know how to move when it's time. And now, what once felt like abandonment is beginning to reveal itself as preservation. You are no longer who you were when this hiding began. Your character is deeper. Your discernment is sharper. Your heart is no longer chasing recognition, it's anchored in revelation. And soon, I will lift the veil. When I present you, it will not be to seek validation, it will be to walk in the assignment you've been shaped for. And you will walk with a confidence that doesn't come from applause, but from having survived the process. They didn't see the rebuilding, and that's exactly how I designed it. They will only see the strength that emerged, the wisdom that flows from your words, the authority that now rests on your shoulders. And they'll wonder how it happened so suddenly. But you will know it wasn't sudden at all. It was sacred. It was slow. It was me. So don't regret the seasons of hiddenness. They were holy. And what I built in that space will stand through storms, through pressure, through opposition, because it wasn't made in public. It was made in my presence. I've rebuilt you from the inside out, and now you're ready to walk into the fullness of everything I've prepared. The time of hiding is coming to an end, not because you demanded visibility, but because the vessel is finally ready. Watch what I do next. I will bring you forward in a way that no man can take credit for and no enemy can interrupt. You may have believed those silent seasons when you felt unseen, unheard, and seemingly forgotten were wasted, but in reality, they were echoing louder in heaven than any platform ever could on earth. While the world watched for noise, performance, and public proof of success, I was recording the moments no one else could see. When you chose obedience in obscurity, when you worshiped through weeping, when you gave even when you had little left, heaven wasn't silent. The angels leaned in, and the pages of your story were being written in ink far more eternal than applause. The hours you spent in prayer when no one responded to your calls, the days you showed up to responsibilities without recognition, the countless moments you gave your best and received no thanks, those weren't wasted. They were witnessed. You were planting seeds that grew roots too deep to be seen by human eyes. While others were performing for crowds, you were pursuing my heart. While others raced to be seen, you chose stillness to be reshaped. The world may never celebrate those quiet victories, but I crown them with favor. Because real impact doesn't start in visibility, it starts in surrender. And you, my beloved, surrendered over and over, even when it didn't make sense, even when it felt like nothing was changing. Those quiet days built endurance. They for you faith. They proved that your devotion was not circumstantial, it was covenantal. You didn't need stage lights to remain faithful. You didn't require recognition to keep loving well. You didn't stop trusting me just because no one was clapping. That is why I trust you now. Your consistency and hiddenness is what qualified you for what's coming next. And though those days were quiet on earth, they were recorded in heaven as praise. Every time you said yes to me when it cost you something, it was written as a line of glory in your legacy. Every time you turned away from shortcuts and chose the long road of character, your name was etched deeper into my divine plan. You didn't know it then, But you were writing chapters with your choices. You were shaping future through your faithfulness. And now, what I am unfolding is not random blessing, it is the reward of your unwavering trust. This is why you're about to step into rooms that seem too great for your resume, because your resume was never the full story. I was the one keeping record. I was the one building the weight of your testimony in the silence. And now, as I begin to reveal what I've written through your life, people will marvel at the suddenness. But it wasn't sudden. It was sacred. You didn't miss your moment, you built it with every quiet yes to me. And now, those hidden chapters are becoming the foundation of influence, impact, and inheritance. You were never forgotten. You were being faithfully written into eternity's greatest story. And now, it's time for what heaven heard to echo in the earth. When the situation crumbled beneath your feet and the outcome didn't match what you prayed for, it felt like failure had written the final word. Everything in the natural seemed to shout defeat, opportunities vanished, relationships unraveled, progress stalled. To those watching from the outside, it appeared as though you had missed it, as if all your effort, hope, and trust had been in vain. Even within yourself, there were moments where discouragement echoed louder than truth. You looked back and wondered, where did I go wrong? But I want you to know now, I never saw it as loss. What felt like a collapse was actually a shift. What looked like rejection was divine revision. Heaven wasn't ignoring your cries. Heaven was rearranging the path to ensure the promise would be greater than you imagined. You didn't lose, you were being repositioned. You were routed from lesser to greater, from temporary fixes to eternal fruit. You asked me to use you. You surrendered to my will. And when things didn't go according to your plan, you thought I had left. But I never stepped away. I stepped in, even deeper, to intercept anything that would have robbed you of what's truly yours. I interrupted the process not to frustrate you but to free you. I allowed the doors to close because I saw what was behind them. I permitted the pause because I knew what needed to be protected. You didn't lose ground, you gained insight. You didn't forfeit your calling, you found a more accurate alignment. What you thought was a detour was actually a divine delay so I could make room for more. I removed what would have weakened the foundation, so when I build you now, nothing can shake it. You didn't fall behind, you stepped out of a path that wasn't going to sustain you long term. I replaced what would have limited you with what will launch you. The blessings that are coming now will not be fragile, rushed, or short-lived. They will be established, deep, and enduring because they've been arranged by heaven, not constructed by striving. And those who thought they were watching your defeat will soon witness the unveiling of a plan so precise, they'll have no words. I am about to open doors you never knocked on, align you with people you never pursued, and place you in positions your past couldn't predict. Because I never needed you to win in their way, I needed you to trust mine. And now that you've surrendered your definition of victory, I can give you something far better: fulfillment. You didn't lose your place. You were being shaped for one you couldn't have reached unless I stepped in. And now, everything that was rearranged will begin to make sense. Your tears were never wasted. Your silence wasn't ignored. Your sacrifice was never unnoticed. The path you're about to walk has been reordered for your good. And when you arrive, you'll realize that what you thought was the end was actually the moment I restructured the entire journey to bless you in a way no human could ever undo. This was never a loss. This was heaven rewriting your win my way. There was a time when the silence around your name made even you wonder if your presence held any weight. People passed you by, opportunities overlooked you, and conversations that once included you began to move forward without your voice. You felt invisible, left out of the room, the plan, the moment. They stopped calling. They stopped checking. They stopped including you. And soon, the world around you began echoing a word you never wanted to wear: forgotten. It clung to your thoughts in the quiet moments, whispered lies to your heart as you waited and watched others be noticed, celebrated, elevated. But I never stopped seeing you. I never misplaced your destiny. While they labeled you forgotten, I had already marked you as mine. You were never on the outside, I was simply preserving you from the inside. Their distance didn't define your value. Their neglect didn't remove your worth. In fact, I allowed certain voices to go quiet so you would hear me more clearly. You don't need to be remembered by men to be used by heaven. You were set apart, not set aside. You were selected for something that required separation first. I didn't forget you, I set you apart for refinement. And while they thought your absence meant disqualification, I was qualifying you through obedience, humility, and unseen faithfulness. They forgot because they never truly saw you. But I, who formed you in secret, have never once turned my eyes away. Your steps have been guided even when it felt like you were standing still. And every quiet yes, every act of faith when no one was watching, every moment you chose to keep believing even when it hurt, I recorded it. I remembered it. I treasured it. I call you chosen because I chose you not based on appearance or applause, but based on the heart you gave me when no one else clapped. And now, I am bringing you forward not as a forgotten name but as a living message. Your life will declare that what man forgets, God remembers. What man overlooks, God ordains. You were never meant to be known too soon. I hid you until the fullness of time arrived. And now, I will place you in rooms where no connection could have brought you and no hand could have carried you. You won't be there because you fought for it, you'll be there because I chose you for it. And those who once moved forward without you will have no choice but to witness what I've placed upon you. But you won't need their validation anymore because your identity is sealed in my voice. You were never forgotten. You were always on my mind, in my hand, under my wing. And now, the label they gave you will be replaced by the truth I've always spoken. You are chosen, beloved, destined, and about to be revealed in a way that only heaven could have written. There were places you walked through that others wouldn't have survived. Valleys that echoed with shadows, questions, and silence. The kind of terrain that tested everything inside you, not just your faith, but your identity, your endurance, your trust in my promises when nothing around you looked like what I had spoken. You didn't walk through that valley with a crowd. You didn't carry banners or boast about your strength. You walked low, often in tears, sometimes with trembling steps, but always with one thing intact: your obedience. You kept going even when your heart was breaking. You honored my voice even when it cost you everything familiar. You stayed faithful when you could have chosen comfort. That valley didn't just shape your character, it proved your devotion. In the moments where it would have been easy to quit, you said yes again. And though it may have looked to others like you had lost your way, I knew you were following the path I carved through pain, trial, and refinement. You didn't need understanding from the world, because you were anchored in trust. And that obedience, unseen, uncelebrated, and often misunderstood, has reached my throne as a fragrance I will not forget. Now I'm leading you out. Not because you begged, but because you passed through. You didn't just survive the valley, you obeyed in it. You surrendered, not for a season, but for a lifetime. And that's why I'm bringing you higher. The mountain ahead is not a reward for effort. It's a response to surrender. I lift up those who stay low. I exalt those who yield when the road gets rough. And you, my child, have yielded without resentment. You walk the hard road with humility. And now, I will place you where only I could place you. The view from the mountain will not be one of ego, but of perspective. You will see clearly why the valley was necessary. You will recognize how every tear watered something eternal. The clarity that comes with elevation is not just for your benefit, it's for your calling. I'm bringing you to a place of influence, authority, and visibility, not to flaunt you, but to fulfill my purpose through you. And when people ask how you arrive here, your answer won't be about talent or strategy. It will be about obedience in the dark, surrender in the silence, and trust that didn't make sense. They will see the glow of the mountain and not realize it was built from the ashes of your valley. But I know. I saw every moment. I walked with you through the hardest chapters. And now I will reveal my glory through you, not just in what you say, but in who you've become. The valley didn't break you, it built the kind of strength that elevation cannot produce on its own. And now that I'm raising you up, you'll never forget where your help came from. I'm exalting you to make my name known through your life, your story, your transformation. This mountain is not the end, it's a beginning. And you're ready, not because you climb quickly, but because you follow me faithfully. Welcome to the next chapter. The valley was preparation. The mountain is manifestation. They thought their words would weaken you. They assumed that if they talked long enough, if they exaggerated just enough, if they passed your name through enough hands wrapped in speculation and sarcasm, you would eventually bend beneath the weight of it. But what they never considered is that you were not built on their approval, you were rooted in my grace. With every rumor they spread, I added more strength to your steps. With every whispered lie, I covered you in another layer of favor. They may have spoken your name with dishonor, but I spoke it in heaven with purpose. The noise they created around you became the backdrop for the quiet strength I was forming within you. They didn't realize that gossip isn't strong enough to dismantle what I've divinely ordained. If anything, it sharpened your focus. It peeled away the need for human validation. It freed you from the pressure of performance and ushered you into deeper dependence on me. I watched you hear things about yourself that were twisted, careless, even cruel, and yet, you didn't retaliate. You didn't allow bitterness to take root. You kept your posture low, your words pure, and your heart open to me. And because you refused to stoop to their level, I've lifted you into places they'll never be able to touch. You didn't let their commentary corrupt your calling. You let it drive you to my presence. And in that sacred space, I increased your capacity for compassion, for discernment, for grace that overflows not only for yourself but even for them. That's what makes your rise so powerful, not just that you endured, but that you remain kind. Your grace is not artificial, it's been pressed from pain, and that makes it weighty. It's not a performance, it's a product of deep encounters with my mercy. I took the sting of their words and turned it into oil. Oil that now coats everything you touch. Oil that heals when you speak. Oil that rests on your presence. You don't even have to announce your growth. Those who once judged you will feel it when you walk into the room. The same mouths that tried to ruin your name will now have to witness the fragrance of grace that surrounds your life. And when they wonder how you did it, how you didn't cave under their cruelty, they'll come to understand your grace was not your own. It was divine. It was supernatural. It was me. And I will make sure the very ones who tried to damage your reputation will see that your identity is unshaken. Not only will you recover, but you will radiate. You will not just survive their talk, you will shine so brightly through it that even they will have to pause. And this, my child, is the lesson I'm teaching through your story, that no amount of gossip can override the grip of grace. What was spoken against you was absorbed by my hand and transformed into strength. And now, every step you take forward will be evidence that grace always wins where gossip hoped to destroy. You are walking proof that the truth cannot be silenced and purpose cannot be polluted by opinion. Let them talk. I'm already moving. There were moments when you were given every reason to strike back. You had evidence. You had justification. You had opportunity. They wronged you without remorse, twisted your truth, and walked away as if it cost them nothing. It would have been easy, natural even, to return fire with fire, to speak the truth in anger, to make them feel even a fraction of the pain they caused. But you didn't. Not because you were too weak to fight, but because you were too strong to fall. You chose restraint over revenge, not to please people, but to honor me. And that decision, the quiet one, the unseen one, echoed louder in the courts of heaven than you realize. You chose to let me handle what they mishandled. You handed me the offense, even as it burned in your chest. And because of that, I marked you as royalty. Not royalty as the world defines it, with crowns made of gold and thrones built by man, but royalty of character, of spirit, of divine distinction. You see, the kingdom I'm building isn't handed to those who conquer with pride, it's entrusted to those who walk in humility and overcome evil with good. Your refusal to retaliate wasn't weakness, it was proof of maturity. It revealed a heart that understands true power doesn't scream, it submits. And in that submission, you unlocked authority. They thought they had silenced you, but your silence was strength. They assumed you had backed down, but you were stepping up into alignment, into favor, into legacy. The world applauds those who clap back. I reward those who step back and let me lead. You passed a test few even recognize exists. When you could have defended yourself, you allowed me to be your defender. And now, I'm positioning you not just to be seen, but to be seated in places no human could have placed you. You will lead not because you forced your way forward, but because you waited while I prepared your promotion. Royalty isn't about status, it's about stewardship. It's about ruling your spirit before ruling a room. And you have proven that you can be trusted with influence, because you didn't misuse the moment. You didn't let offense become identity. You didn't let bitterness grow roots. You kept your heart soft and your hands clean. And now, I'm clothing you in garments of honor that no one can strip away. They will wonder how you arrived there. They'll try to trace it back to titles or connections. But what they'll never understand is that it all began in a moment when you chose peace over pride, dignity over drama, purpose over payback. That moment changed everything. It qualified you in a realm they can't see. And the crown I'm placing on your life now isn't for appearance, it's for impact. You will lead with grace because you were refined by fire. You will carry influence because you carried pain without poisoning others. You have the heart of royalty because you bowed when you could have battled. And from this place I will lift you. You won't have to demand recognition, it will find you. Not because you chased it, but because you stewarded what I gave you in silence. You didn't retaliate, and that made room for my righteousness to be revealed through you. Now, watch as I elevate you with a peace they can't understand and a favor they can't block. This is what royalty in my kingdom looks like, and you wear it well. Could have spoken when they accused you. You could have exposed what was hidden. You could have used the truth as a weapon and left your accusers speechless. But instead, you chose restraint not out of fear, but from a place of reverence. You didn't let your emotions lead you. You let your spirit yield to mine. And while the world saw your silence as weakness, I saw it as royal dignity. You didn't defend yourself because you trusted me to do what only I can. That restraint wasn't wasted, it became the very material I used to robe you in honor. The self-control you practiced in the midst of unfairness became a garment more glorious than any recognition. Every time you bit your tongue instead of retaliating, I wove another thread of strength into your identity. Every time you walked away instead of engaging in a war I never called you to fight, I added another layer to your covering. What you wore in those silent battles, the cloak of self-discipline, the covering of humility, the mantle of obedience, is now being transformed into visible authority. Your robe is not made of status or titles. It's stitched with restraint, patience, and the quiet trust that refused to crumble. You wore your integrity when it was costly. You covered others even when they exposed you. You walked through fire and still chose purity over pride. And now, as I bring you into a new season, the robe I placed upon you will not go unnoticed. It will speak without words. It will command respect not through force, but through the grace that radiates from your life. They won't understand how you carry such peace. They'll wonder why you move with such quiet power. But it will all trace back to the restraint you chose when it mattered most. You didn't take the shortcut of vengeance, you waited for my vindication. You didn't chase reputation, you trusted me to clothe you in righteousness. That restraint has become your robe, and it qualifies you in a way no man-made credential ever could. Now, as I position you, you will enter spaces where your character will go before your name. Your robe will be your evidence. And those who once watched you suffer in silence will now witness you standing with strength. They will see the weight of glory resting on your shoulders, not because you demanded it, but because you endured for it. And while they can't explain how you carry it so well, heaven knows. I saw you when you said nothing. I heard you when you wept in private. I recorded every moment you held your peace, and now I'm responding with honor. Your restraint has released a robe that no man can remove and no storm can strip away. It is yours because you chose me over the moment. And now, wherever you go, your restraint will speak louder than their accusations ever could. You are robed in my righteousness, wrapped in my favor, and crowned with a calm that can only come from deep surrender. This is the beginning of your unveiling, and it starts with a robe no one saw me preparing. Before anyone applauded, before anyone noticed, before a single door opened or platform was offered, I placed something on your life that no one could see. It didn't come with noise or flashing lights. It came in the quiet of your surrender, in the depths of your unseen yes. The crown I gave you wasn't made of gold or adorned with jewels. It was woven from your obedience, shaped by your sacrifices, and sealed with my authority. I crowned you not when you were celebrated, but when you were still in the shadows. You didn't even realize at the time that I was doing it. You were just following me, step by step, moment by moment, not seeking titles, not chasing recognition. And that's exactly why I chose you. I saw the way you serve without needing to be seen. I watched you give when no one was watching. I heard the prayers you whispered with trembling hands, the kind of prayers that are birthed in pressure and watered with tears. You kept showing up, not for applause but for purpose. And every time you chose faithfulness over fame, I lowered a crown over your spirit, one no man could remove. They didn't see it then. They saw you as average, ordinary, easy to ignore. But heaven had already called you royal. Your spirit was marked long before your surroundings shifted. And now, the time is coming when what I placed on your life in secret will be undeniable in public. You won't need to explain it. You won't have to strive for it. The authority you carry will speak for itself. The oil on your life will reveal that the crown is not new, it's simply now visible. And those who once overlooked you will be stunned by what they see, because they never expected greatness to emerge from someone they dismissed. But I always knew. I always saw. I always planned this moment. This reign I'm ushering you into isn't about status, it's about stewardship. It's not about ruling over people, it's about rising with purpose. I'm bringing you into influence not to prove them wrong, but to show the world what I can do with a life that chooses me in silence. The crown you wear now carries weight, not because of earthly authority, but because of heavenly affirmation. And with it comes clarity, wisdom, and the kind of peace that only grows in secret places. You don't need to fear visibility, because you've been prepared in hiddenness. You don't need to fear pressure, because your roots go deep. I crowned you in secret because I needed your identity to be anchored in me, not in titles, not in people's approval, not in recognition. And now, as I begin to lift you, nothing will shake what I've established. The honor I place on your life will rest on you gently, but powerfully. And those who once questioned your worth will be left speechless, not because you boast, but because your fruit will speak volumes. I crown those who kneel. I elevate those who serve. And you, beloved, have done both. So walk forward not with arrogance, but with assurance. The secret place has prepared you for the stage. The whispers of heaven are about to echo loudly on earth. And when they ask how this all happened, you'll know. It with the crown I placed long ago, waiting patiently for this very moment to be revealed. You chose to lift your hands in worship even when your heart was breaking. You whispered prayers through tears, praised me with a voice cracked by grief, and trusted me in moments when pain tried to convince you I had forgotten. You did shut your heart to me when everything inside you begged for comfort. Instead, you came closer. You came when it hurt. You came when you didn't understand. You came even when there were no answers, only questions, silence, and struggle. That, my beloved, is what set you apart. You honored me not because life was easy, but because you believed I was still worthy even when it wasn't. And that kind of faith forged in fire is rare. I took note of every step you made while limping. I remembered the nights you stayed up crying, but still woke up declaring my name. I recorded the days when you felt completely empty, but still poured out kindness, still chose compassion, still offered forgiveness. You didn't use your pain as an excuse to turn bitter. You used it as an altar, You didn't allow it to harden you, you let it hollow out space for me. You honored me when you could have walked away. And now, I will honor you while I bring restoration to every place that once ached in silence. You will be healed in ways that surprise you, not just physically, not only emotionally, but deep in your identity, where the cracks have long been hidden. The wounds that nobody noticed, the ones you covered so well, will be the first places I pour my glory. And as you begin to feel the weight of sorrow lift, it won't just be relief, it will be recognition. Because I saw what no one else saw, and I'm responding. You honored me while others questioned me. You stood firm while others gave in. And that honor didn't go unnoticed in heaven. Now I will honor you not with fleeting applause, but with lasting wholeness. I'm not just mending what's broken, I'm making it brand new. Where shame once lived, I'm placing joy. Where fatigue once strained you, I'm releasing energy. Where fear kept knocking, I'm planting confidence that cannot be moved. They will look at you and not recognize the person you've become, because healing changes everything. It transforms the countenance, reawakens the spirit, and reintroduces the soul. And I'm going to make sure the world sees the shift, not because you need validation, but because your transformation will testify of my love. The honor you gave me in the valley is about to be returned in the form of favor on the mountaintop. You didn't seek attention, you gave me affection. Now I will reward that posture with a presence upon your life that radiates my faithfulness. You are not being healed in secret, you are being restored in full view. And those who once looked at you and only saw brokenness will now look again and see brilliance, strength, and peace. Not because you faked your way through the pain, but because you chose to praise through it. And I, your God, never let that go unnoticed. I am faithful to those who are faithful. I exalt those who endure with humility. And you have done both. And now, let me honor you not as repayment, but as fulfillment. You honored me in the storm. Now I will clothe you in calm, surround you with goodness, and fill your days with the kind of peace that only heaven can give. This is not just recovery, it's reward. And it begins now. They drew their conclusions early. Without knowing your full story, without witnessing your quiet battles, without understanding the depth of what I was building inside of you, they made declarations based on shallow perspectives. They'll never make it. They don't have what it takes. They're not strong enough, not smart enough, not chosen enough. Their words were sharp, dismissive, and carried an air of finality as though they had authority over what I designed. But I was listening. I heard every opinion, every judgment disguised as advice, every word that questioned your calling. And while they spoke limitation over you, I was whispering destiny into you. While they reduced your potential to their perception, I was expanding your purpose far beyond what they could comprehend. You see, they didn't realize who was standing behind you. They underestimated what I can do with someone who simply refuses to give up. Their disbelief did not deter me, it activated something greater. I allowed them to speak, not because I agreed with them, but because I wanted them to have a front row seat to your rise. Not to shame them, but to show them the difference between man's label and heaven's decree. They said you can't, but they didn't know I had already said yes. I already saw the finish line while they were doubting your first step. And now, I will raise you not in secret, but in plain sight. Your growth will be visible. Your progress will be undeniable. Your rise will be steady, powerful, and irrefutable. And they'll watch it unfold not because you have to prove anything, but because I've chosen to make your journey a statement. A statement that says, my plans are not limited by their predictions. A statement that testifies that when I back someone, no force can stop them. I'm not lifting you to mock their disbelief, I'm lifting you to manifest my glory. Your rise is a response, not to their doubt, but to your devotion. You believed when it was hard. You kept moving even when it hurt. You didn't need a cheerleader, you just needed me. And now that I'm bringing you forward, they'll have no choice but to revise what they once believed. Where they saw failure, they'll now see favor. Where they expected collapse, they'll witness capacity. You will need to say a word. Your life will speak for itself. Your success won't be loud or boastful, it will be marked with peace, purpose, and presence. And that's what will set it apart. Because you didn't chase status, you chased me. And now I'm honoring that. Your rise isn't just about elevation, it's about revelation. I want them to see what happens when someone walks with me through rejection, through delay, through discouragement, and still doesn't quit. You are that person. And now, the very ones who said you can't will watch in awe not of you but of what I've done through you. They'll witness a transformation that can't be explained by strategy or luck, only by grace. You will rise not in arrogance, but in assurance. Because you know this was never about proving them wrong, it was always about proving me right. I chose you. I prepared you. I sustained you. And now, I'm revealing you. Watch how I turn every you can't into evidence that I can and did. They size you up according to their limited vision. They looked at your background, your battles, your setbacks, and silently decided that your place was somewhere beneath the level I had already destined for you. They assigned ceilings to your future based on what they could comprehend, not realizing that your path was never subject to their assumptions. To them, you were too unlikely, too unqualified, too ordinary. They couldn't imagine someone like you stepping into arenas of influence, walking in rooms where decisions are shaped, or standing in positions that carry authority and impact. But that's because they measured you by human expectation, not by heavenly intention. I've always had a place prepared for you, a territory reserved with your name on it, untouched by their opinions. I watched you endure their dismissiveness without bitterness. You didn't chase their validation or strive to force your way into spaces they said you weren't worthy of. Instead, you kept your heart steady. You focused on growth. You followed my voice even when it led you through quiet places. And now, the moment is coming where I will seat you in places no one thought you'd reach. It will not be by manipulation or maneuvering. It will be by my hand alone. I am establishing you in a position they thought was out of your reach. Not because you begged for it, but because you were prepared for it. The elevation you're about to experience isn't simply an opportunity, it's alignment. I've been orchestrating this placement behind the scenes, ranging details and shifting circumstances to make room for your arrival. What they called too big for you is about to become your new assignment. The environment they said you didn't fit is the one I'm about to mold around your presence. And you will carry it with humility, with wisdom, and with authority that only I could have crafted through your process. Don't be surprised when you're positioned next to people who once passed you over. Don't flinch when you walk through doors they said you'd never access. This is not about revenge, it's about revelation. I'm revealing what I placed in you long ago. And now, it's time for the world to see what heaven has always known. Your presence in these new spaces will not be accidental, it will be prophetic. It will declare that I choose the ones others overlook, that I lift those who are found faithful in low places, that I qualify the surrendered, not the self-promoting. You're not being placed there to fit in, you're being sent there to shift the atmosphere. Your presence will change the room not because you try to, but because you carry something they can't ignore. You will speak with clarity, move with confidence, and lead with compassion. And they'll ask, how did they get here? But the truth is you've always belonged, it just took time for them to catch up to what I already decreed. You didn't push your way in. I pulled you into alignment. And now that you're stepping into it, walk boldly, not in pride, but in peace. You're not there to impress, you're there to impact. And the ones who thought you never stood a chance will soon witness that I was with you all along, positioning you for a purpose they never saw coming. They watched you in your lowest seasons. They may not have known every detail, but they saw enough to draw their own conclusions. They saw the moments you faltered, the days you didn't shine, the times when your life looked more like a battlefield than a testimony. They observed the visible signs of your hardship, the weariness in your eyes, the delays in your journey, the tension in your circumstances. Some offered sympathy. Others offered silence. And a few, whether they admitted it or not, felt a quiet satisfaction in your visible pain. They assumed your struggle would last forever. They began associating your identity with your trial, mistaking what you were going through as who you would remain. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't stuck, you were being strengthened. While they focused on the storm above, I was anchoring you beneath. I was building endurance where they only saw exhaustion. I was crafting resilience where they assumed ruin. I was breathing life into places that looked barren. And now, a shift is coming. The strength I've been forming within you, the power forged in silence, in tears, in perseverance, is about to rise to the surface. You will no longer be known only by your past battles. You will be recognized by the authority you carried because of what you overcame. The strength they're about to see isn't loud or boastful, it's unshakable. It's not born of pride but of process. You walked through storms without quitting. You endured opposition without breaking. You kept trusting me when you had every reason to doubt. And now, that kind of strength is about to define you. Your strength isn't just in surviving, it's in how you kept your heart soft, how you kept your faith alive, how you kept going when nothing made sense. I've been building you into a fortress of grace, a living testimony of my sustaining power. You don't have to try to prove anything. Your very presence will carry weight. Your words will hold power. Your actions will be led with clarity. And the same people who once saw you as fragile will now witness the force of purpose that surrounds your life. Not the kind of force that pushes others down, but the kind that lifts others up. They saw you cry, but now they will see you lead. They saw you bend, but now they'll see you stand. And they will wonder, what happened? How did the one who looked finished now carry such unshakable peace? How did the one who nearly gave up walk forward with such calm authority? And in that moment, they will realize it was me all along. I was the one holding you together. I was the one shaping the core of who you are beneath the surface. The struggle didn't disqualify you, it prepared you. And now your strength will speak louder than their assumptions ever did. You are walking into a season where your spiritual stature will silence every old narrative. You no longer have to defend yourself, your transformation will do it for you. And as they watch you rise, it will be more than personal vindication, it will be a revelation of what I can do with someone who refuses to give up. They saw your struggle. Now, by my design, they will witness your strength. They may have seen your tears as weakness, as breakdowns you failed to hide, but I saw something completely different. Every drop that fell from your eyes was not a sign of defeat, it was a sacred offering. You wept in silence, often when no one else was watching, feeling like your sorrow had no place and your emotions had no voice. But I collected every tear. I counted each one as precious. I saw the nights you cried not because you were giving up, but because you cared so deeply and carried so much. The weight of what you were holding felt too heavy at times. You didn't cry because you were fragile, you cried because you were faithful, and your heart remained tender even when life felt harsh. What you didn't realize is that your tears weren't just falling, they were sowing. Every moment of grief, every cry of surrender, every aching plea birthed something in the soil of your life. I used your tears as water to soften the hardened ground, to make room for growth in places that were once dry. While you wept, I was working. While you mourned, I was moving. What seemed like silent suffering was actually preparation for a harvest that would be impossible without the depth of emotion. I wasn't ignoring your pain, I was anchoring your roots through it. The soil beneath your feet was being transformed by what you poured out in vulnerability. And now, that soil is ready. The seeds I planted in you long ago, the promises you almost forgot, the dreams you laid down, the prayers you whispered through clenched teeth are about to break through the surface. You're stepping into a season of unexpected blossoming. And it won't be because you forced it. It will be because your tears did the work you couldn't. The growth you're about to see is a direct result of how deeply you allowed yourself to feel, surrender, and trust. I honor those who choose me even while they are breaking. I respond to hearts that bring their pain into my presence. You didn't run, you remain. You didn't numb yourself, you leaned in. And for that, I am opening the windows of heaven over your life. I'm bringing fruit where there was once famine. I'm creating joy in places where sorrow ruled. And you will begin to see the evidence not just around you but within you. Peace will start to take the place of panic. Vision will return to the eyes that once cried themselves shut. Strength will arise in the areas where fatigue once lived. And when others marvel at your resilience, you'll know the truth. It came from the broken places I touched with compassion. You didn't lose anything through your tears, you gave something. You gave your honesty. You gave your heart. And I have turned that offering into overflow. This new season will carry a softness and power that can only come from deep healing. And when you walk through this new chapter, you won't have to explain the cost. Your peace will speak for itself. So do not be ashamed of the tears you've cried. Do not regret the depth of feeling you've experienced. It was not in vain. Your tears watered the soil. And now, the harvest is on its way, not because you pushed harder, but because you allowed yourself to be real with me. I am faithful to the brokenhearted. I am near to the weary. And now, I will prove that nothing surrendered in sorrow ever goes unnoticed. This is your season to bloom. They spoke with boldness, not knowing that their words were digging the very foundation I would build upon. Their voices rang out with accusation, criticism, and ridicule. They pointed fingers, spread assumptions, and spoke over your name with the intent to limit, diminish, and disqualify. But what they failed to realize is that I specialize in reversing the narrative spoken by man. What they tried to use to curse you, I have turned into a mirror reflecting the truth of who you are in me. They said you weren't capable, and I confirmed your anointing. They said you were done, and I confirmed your assignment. They said you didn't belong, and I confirmed your placement. Each time they tried to speak against your destiny, I wrote another line of purpose in your story. Their curses didn't stop the plan, they highlighted it. Because when people speak from a place of pride or jealousy, they often end up affirming the very thing they hope to deny. Every time they said, "You're not called," heaven answered back, "Watch what I do next." Their attempt to speak against your identity only strengthened what I placed inside you. You didn't need their approval, you already had my authority. And while their words stung, I used them to fuel your refinement. They pushed you into prayer. They pressed you deeper into my presence. They forced you to let go of depending on acceptance and lean fully on my affirmation. And because you chose not to internalize their venom, I've transformed it into victory. Their curses became unintentional confirmations, revealing the weight of your calling because the enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. The very fact that you were targeted, gossiped about, and misrepresented proves that something powerful was being formed in you. And now, as I begin to unfold your purpose publicly, those same voices will be silenced not by your retaliation, but by my demonstration. I will make your life the answer they said didn't exist. I will fulfill through you the very things they claimed were impossible. And they will witness not just your rise, but the grace with which you carry it. You won't bloat. You won't mock it. You will walk with quiet confidence, knowing that their resistance only revealed how real your assignment truly is. Let their words serve as reminders not of pain, but of prophecy. What they tried to shut down only pushed you further into position. What they hoped would end your momentum only ignited your movement. I turned their curses into stepping stones, their rejection into redirection, their insult into insight. And now, nothing they said can stand against what I am doing. Your calling is not fragile, it's forged. And no man's commentary can override my covenant. So lift your head. You've been tried, but now you are trusted. You've been slandered, but now you are sealed. Their curses did not cancel your purpose, they confirmed it. And what I've begun in you, I will finish loudly, clearly, and without apology. You didn't understand why. For so long, your voice felt unheard and your efforts unseen. It seemed like you were giving your best, walking in obedience, and doing what I asked yet still remained hidden. Others rose around you, gained recognition, were celebrated and invited while you remained behind the curtain, carrying your assignment in silence. It wasn't neglect. It wasn't punishment. It was intentional. I made you invisible not to diminish your value but to protect your development. Visibility before maturity can sabotage destiny. And I love you too much to expose you before you're ready. So I covered you, even when you wanted to be revealed. I concealed you not because I was ashamed of you, but because I was shaping something that needed solitude. I gave you seasons where it felt like no one noticed, not because you weren't worth noticing, but because your strength had to be forged away from the eyes of others. Public exposure demands private endurance. And in those quiet spaces, I was building your character to match your calling. I was teaching you how to hear my voice without interference, how to move without validation, how to obey when the applause is absent. You learned how to grow without being seen, how to stay faithful without being praised, how to serve without being celebrated. And now, because you remain faithful in hiddenness, I'm bringing you into visibility with purpose. Not as a personality, but as a vessel of impact. This will not be a shallow entrance. This will be a divine unveiling. And when it happens, it will feel sudden to others but not to you. Because you know what it cost. You know the long nights, the quiet prayers, the unseen battles. The years of invisibility were never wasted, they were sacred. They were necessary. And now, when you speak, your voice will carry weight. Not because you forced it to be heard, but because it has been refined in silence. When you show up, the atmosphere will shift not because of your presence, but because of what you carry. You are not being revealed for popularity, you are being released for purpose. I waited until the moment of impact. I orchestrated your entrance to collide with a need, a gap, a moment in time that only your story, your gifts, and your obedience could fill. And when it happens, they'll wonder where you came from. They'll call it sudden, but heaven will call it fulfillment. You are stepping into a moment that has been prepared for you and you for it. You will not just be seen, you will be effective. You will not just be noticed, you will be known by what rests upon you. The oil from your unseen season will now flow in public places. And your impact will not just be wide, it will be deep. You are not a product of high. You are the result of holy process. I've kept you under my wing for long enough. Now, I am lifting the veil, not for attention, but for assignment. Your invisibility is ending because your influence is beginning. This is the moment of impact. And you are ready. There was a time when you tried to downplay who you were. You didn't want to seem too bold, too passionate, too different, so you tucked parts of yourself away. You shrank in rooms that couldn't handle your light. You dimmed your flame so others wouldn't feel small. You withheld revelation, held back your voice, suppressed the brilliance of what I placed inside you just to maintain peace, to avoid discomfort, to protect fragile egos. But I never created you to blend in. I never called you to be average. I never designed you to carry my glory and keep it concealed. That light inside you, it's mine. I lit it with intention. I kindled it through the fire you walked through. And now, after all the seasons of silence, all the years of pressing, all the days of pruning and preparation, the light you carry has grown too strong to stay hidden. You've been through too much, learned too deeply, trusted too consistently, and surrendered too fully to keep it contained. This is not the moment to dim, it's the moment to shine. You were hidden for a purpose, but now you are emerging by assignment. And no amount of fear, doubt, or opposition will be able to extinguish what I've ignited in you. The radiance within you will begin to pierce through spaces still covered in confusion. Your presence will shift atmospheres. Your words will carry unusual clarity. Your actions will drip with grace and boldness at the same time. And not because you're striving to be seen, but because I've declared it's time for you to be revealed. No more apologizing for the way I've shaped you. No more fitting into molds that were never meant to contain you. This is the season where your light goes ahead of you. It will open doors you never knocked on. It will reach people you never pursued. And the best part is your light isn't about you. It's a reflection of me and you. The same spirit that sustained you in the dark is now shining through you in the open. And what once felt like rejection will become redirection toward those who are ready to receive what you carry. Don't be surprised when people start to take notice. Don't let false humility keep you from walking in your full expression. This is not pride, it's purpose. I'm not putting you on display for entertainment. I'm positioning you as a lamp on a stand, to illuminate what others have been searching for in silence. You are a light bearer, a truth carrier, a firewalker who didn't quit when it was easier to fold. And now, your story will shine. Ivor ablazaba ivor imbe. Ivor hem ivor vrinu. The light that could not be hidden will now become a beacon. And those wandering in darkness will be drawn to what's shining from your life, not because of you, but because of me. So don't hold back, or don't retreat when I'm calling you to rise. You've hidden long enough. You've waited long enough. And now, the time has come. Let the light shine. Fully. Freely. Boldly. Because this light was never meant to flicker, it was always meant to blaze. From the beginning, their eyes were too limited to recognize what I carefully crafted within you. They overlooked you because you didn't match the image they were used to. You didn't speak like them, move like them, or seek attention the way others did. And for that, they counted you out. They mistook your uniqueness for insignificance. They saw your difference and mislabeled it as disqualification. But I never created you to blend into the background. I shaped you with precision, intentionally placing within you a different kind of sound, a deeper level of vision, a heart that doesn't chase trends but carries truth. Their dismissal was never a reflection of your worth, it was a reflection of their inability to discern what I was doing. I allowed it not to damage you but to develop you. Because while they turned their backs, I was drawing you closer. While they discredited your presence, I was engraving your purpose. While they focused on the familiar, I was forging something rare. You see, I wasn't interested in making you like everyone else. I set you apart. I wired you for something beyond the crowd. And though that distinction cost you comfort, connections, and sometimes even clarity, it preserved what I was placing on your life. You were not forgotten. You were being formed. You weren't delayed. You were being defined. I didn't allow their validation to become your foundation, because what I've placed in you must stand without applause. And now, the time has come for your distinction to be seen, not as a mark of separation, but as a sign of significance. The very traits they once ignored will now be the traits that draw others to you. The depth of your insight, the purity of your heart, the stability of your spirit. These are not accidents, they are evidence. You were set apart to carry something that requires room, something that couldn't be boxed in or watered down. I'm bringing you into spaces that match what I've built in you, not because you forced it, but because your time has arrived. And when you enter, there will be no need to pretend, no pressure to conform. You won't have to wear what doesn't fit just to feel included. You'll walk in distinction with ease, because now you'll understand it wasn't a flaw, it was the fingerprint of your assignment. Your presence will speak volumes without you raising your voice. Your identity will command respect, not through power, but through authenticity. And those who once pushed you aside will begin to recognize the intentionality behind every part of your journey. But by then, you won't be looking for them to understand, you will be too focused on fulfilling what I've appointed you to do. Let your distinction shine. Don't dull your voice to make others comfortable. Don't water down your fire to fit into rooms I never called you to. I didn't design you for imitation, I crafted you to embody revelation. And now, as I elevate you, remember this: what made you different was never a disadvantage, it was always divine. So walk boldly, knowing that your distinction is not a mistake, it's the signature of heaven on your life. They didn't just walk away, they closed doors. Some didn't even bother with words, they just left you standing in the middle of your loyalty, wondering what you did wrong. Others made it loud, dismissive tones, critical glances, and conversations behind your back that slowly erased you from places you once called home. Their rejection stung, not just because of what they did, but because of who they were. You gave your heart, your time, your presence. And instead of appreciation, you were met with exclusion. It made you question your voice, your place, your worth. But what you didn't know in those moments of pain is that I was watching it all, and I was using every act of dismissal to prepare a new kind of table for you. One not crafted out of pity or convenience, but one formed through divine strategy. They thought they were ending your access, but they were actually making room for your advancement. I used the very wood of their rejection, the conversations that cut you off, the opportunities they blocked, the invitations that never came, to construct a table that carries purpose, peace, and power. You were never meant to beg for a seat where I didn't call you. And now, I'm preparing a place where you will not only be seated, you will be honored. This table won't be surrounded by people who merely tolerate you. It will be filled with those who recognize the gift you carry and cherish the journey you've walked through. You won't have to shrink to be accepted. You won't have to prove yourself to be included. You'll bring your full self to the table, and there will be room for it all. Not just your voice, but your vision. Not just your gifts, but your growth. I'm doing more than restoring what was lost. I'm redeeming what was misused. The rejection didn't ruin your future. It redirected it. And now, as I elevate you, the very pain that once made you feel invisible will become the platform that reveals your value. You'll sit in rooms designed for impact, not popularity. And you won't be there because you manipulated your way in. You'll be there because I placed you. A table will become a testimony, a visible reminder that I never waste pain, that I never let rejection have the final word, and that I always finish what I start. And yes, some of those who once shut you out will see it. They'll witness the fruit of what they tried to prune. But there will be no bloating in your heart, only gratitude. Because you will know it wasn't their exclusion that made you, it was my inclusion. I kept you from settling for temporary tables so I could give you a permanent place, at one that was built to last. So lift your head, beloved. The seasons of being overlooked were never wasted. They were laying the foundation for something greater than you imagined. The table is being set. And you, who were once rejected, are now about to be seated in the presence of peace, purpose, and undeniable favor. Watch what I do next. You didn't chase position. You didn't compete for titles. While others were striving to be seen, you chose to serve in silence. You remained steady in places where you could have demanded more. You gave your best even when no one acknowledged it. You chose to encourage others instead of seeking the spotlight for yourself. And while the world celebrates those who promote themselves, heaven celebrates those who bow low. Your humility wasn't a weakness, it was your strength. Every moment you chose to honor instead of elevate yourself became a brick in the foundation I was building beneath your feet. While they thought you were falling behind, I was laying something unshakable beneath you. The kind of character that won't collapse under pressure. The kind of heart that won't be corrupted by success. The kind of spirit that remains anchored when platforms rise and attention grows. You never tried to outshine anyone, you were too focused on being faithful. And that posture has now positioned you for something I alone can give. I saw how you didn't boast about your breakthroughs. How you remained grateful even when you deserved more. I watched you celebrate others while waiting patiently for your turn, trusting me to open doors instead of forcing your way in. That's why I can now raise you, because you've already proven that your identity doesn't depend on elevation. Your humility prepared you for honor. Not a temporary honor that fades with trends, but an enduring honor rooted in trust, service, and authenticity. The foundation is strong, and now I will build upon it. I will place you in rooms that require wisdom, not charisma. I will assign you responsibilities that carry weight, not attention. Because you're not addicted to applause, you're grounded in purpose. And as I elevate you, you'll carry the same humility you've always had. You won't look down on others, you'll lift them. You won't forget the process, you will teach it. You won't be driven by pride, you'll be moved by compassion. Your elevation isn't just for you, it's for those around you. I'm raising you so you can raise others. I'm increasing your influence so your integrity can shape the environment. And everywhere you go, people will feel the difference. They'll notice your gentleness in a world full of arrogance. They'll feel your peace in places filled with pressure. They'll see your excellence, and then they'll see your heart. That is what will set you apart. Your humility won't disappear when you rise. It will rise with you. It will remain your strength. And those who once overlooked you will wonder how you climbed so far. But they won't see a ladder, they'll see a life built on surrender. A heart that chose the low road, and in doing so, was lifted by my hand. This is what true elevation looks like, not man-made achievement, but God-ordained advancement. And because your foundation is humility, nothing will be able to shake what I'm about to do. You can stand tall now not because you built yourself up, but because you bowed low and let me lift you. This is your time. Not to boast but to bless. Not to rise above others, but to rise with purpose. And it all started with a heart that said, I'm willing to serve before I shine. That's the heart I honor. That's the heart I will now establish. They saw the impossibilities stacked against you. They witnessed your quiet beginnings, your countless setbacks, your hidden pain. Some waited for you to quit. Others expected you to fade away. And as you begin to rise slowly, steadily, undeniably, the question will hang in the air, heavy on their minds. How did they do it? They'll look at your life, your progress, your peace, and it won't make sense to them. Because by all natural standards, you weren't supposed to make it. You didn't have the connections, the support, the perfect plan. You weren't born into privilege. You weren't handed the platform. What you carried with tears. What you built through surrender. And when they finally ask, curious and maybe even a little convicted, you won't give them a speech. You won't point to strategy or intellect or hustle. You'll simply say, Jesus did. Because you know the truth, they didn't see the nights you cried into your pillow, asking me to hold your heart together. They didn't witness the moments you almost gave up, not from laziness, but from exhaustion. They didn't see you on your knees in your bedroom, sowing prayers into the soil of the unknown. What I did, I saw every second. I recorded every act of obedience, every tear of worship, every battle you fought in silence. And I was working in all of it not just to bring you out, but to bring you through with power. I gave you strength when yours was gone. I gave you favor that couldn't be explained. I opened doors when others tried to lock you out. I aligned moments so precisely that only heaven could have scripted them. And now, as they watch your life shift, as they witness what they never expected to see, they will be faced with one truth. This could not have happened without me. Your story will testify of me without you even trying. Your peace will point to my presence. Your elevation will reflect my glory. You won't need to defend your journey, the fruit will speak for itself. They'll see the wisdom in your words, the calm in your steps, the light in your eyes, and they'll know something holy shaped you. And when they ask how you stayed standing, how you kept moving, how you found the strength to rebuild again and again, you'll look back with no pride, just awe, and say, Jesus did. Because it was never about proving yourself. It was about trusting me. And you did. Even when it didn't make sense. Even when it hurt. Even when I was silent. And now, the testimony of your life will awaken something in others. It will stir faith in the weary. It will ignite hope in the broken. It will plant seeds in those who had almost stopped believing. And that is the real miracle, not just that you rose, but that others will rise because you did. Not because of fame, but because of faith. Not because of your strength, but because of my spirit moving through you. So let them ask. Let them watch. Let them wonder. And when the moment comes, give me the glory. Because I didn't just help you through the storm, I walked you through it. I didn't just restore you, I refined you. I didn't just bless you, I built you. And now, your life will be a living declaration that Jesus did what no one else could. What they thought was your finish line was just the beginning of a testimony that will echo for generations. And every step forward will continue to carry the same message Jesus did in your favor. They'll study your story, trying to find a formula, looking for patterns, for strategy, for natural reasoning behind your elevation. They'll ask, what connection did they have? What opportunity did they seize? What shortcut did they take? because they need something tangible to explain what is unfolding before their eyes. But they won't find it. They won't be able to place it neatly into their logic or timelines. Because what I've done in your life isn't measurable by earthly systems. It wasn't built by branding, boosted by status, or supported by power from people. Your rise was not manufactured, it was manifested. It was born in hidden obedience, grown in seasons of silence, refined in pain, and watered with tears. You were never aiming for attention. You were walking in alignment. And that's what makes what I'm doing now so incomprehensible to those trying to explain it. It's not supposed to make sense to human understanding. It was written in the mind of God. I authored your ascent before they ever doubted your existence. I mapped your journey before they ever dismissed your presence. And now, what they are seeing is not the product of promotion, it's the unveiling of purpose. They'll try to attribute your success to luck. They'll attempt to give credit to external factors. But in their efforts to explain, they'll only grow more confused. Because everything about your journey defies their expectations. You didn't take the usual path. You didn't follow the crowd. You didn't sell yourself to systems that compromise conviction. You chose me over momentary gain. You chose truth over trend. You chose silence over shouting. And that's why your rise carries weight. It isn't loud, but it's unshakable. It isn't flashy, but it's filled with fire. You didn't rush the process, you trusted the pace I set. And while they were distracted by platforms, you were being prepared in private. That preparation is now becoming undeniable. And as I continue to lift you, they will be forced to acknowledge that what's resting on you is different. They'll feel it when you speak. They'll sense it in how you move. They'll see it in the way doors open, not with effort, but with ease. And they will have no words, no explanation, no theory that satisfies the question, how did this happen? Because what they are witnessing is glory, not gimmick. What they are encountering is grace, not grit. You will walk into rooms where your very presence shifts the atmosphere, not because of your name, but because of mine. And they'll be left silent, realizing that no calculation could have predicted this outcome. That's how I work. I raise the ones who rely on me. I promote the ones who stay pure. I favor the ones who endure without losing their worship. And you did all of that. Quietly. Consistently. Faithfully. Now your life will be the evidence. Evidence that I still exalt the humble. That I still remember the overlooked. That I still breathe on the surrendered. So let them try to explain it. Let them talk, search, and speculate. But as they do, my fingerprint will speak louder than any theory. And in the end, they'll have no choice but to admit this was the work of the Lord. Not earned. Not staged. Not orchestrated by man. This was divinely written and divinely revealed. And your rise will forever stand as a testimony that my hand cannot be calculated, it can only be glorified. There were moments when it felt like you were being erased. People turned away, opportunities dried up, and places that once felt familiar became distant and cold. You began to wonder if you were no longer needed, no longer seen, no longer chosen. It felt like your name was being pulled from conversations, your presence overlooked, your influence quietly fading into the background. You questioned what changed. You questioned yourself. But I want you to know, you were never removed. You were being refined. I didn't take you out because you failed. I drew you back because I was forming something greater inside of you. What looked like subtraction was actually sacred separation. I was removing distractions, dependencies, and voices that distorted your clarity. I wasn't punishing you. I was polishing you. I wasn't silencing you. I was strengthening your voice so that when you speak again, it won't just be sound, it will be substance. Refinement is not rejection. It's a process reserved for the ones I trust. It's what I do with vessels that carry weight. Just like gold must pass through fire to be purified, so too must purpose be tested in the furnace of surrender. You didn't lose your place, you stepped into a deeper one. While others rushed ahead, I slowed you down. While they pursued platforms, I pursued your heart. I wasn't interested in how fast you could move, I was invested in how deeply you could be rooted. Because surface-level growth can collapse under pressure. But what I'm building in you will outlast trends, trials, and time itself. I know it felt like you were being left behind. But really, you were being preserved. If I had let you continue in the direction you were going, you would have settled too soon. You would have given pieces of yourself to places that couldn't hold the weight of what I placed in you. So I pulled you aside. I covered you in obscurity. I kept you close while I worked on the parts no one else could see. Your faith, your integrity, your motives, your sensitivity to my spirit. Those are the things I was refining. Not to make you perfect, but to make you powerful. The kind of power that doesn't crumble under criticism. The kind of confidence that isn't built on applause. The kind of calling that doesn't seek to impress, but to impact. And now, the refining has done its work. You're not who you were when this began. You carry a peace that doesn't panic. You walk in wisdom that wasn't learned in books. You hold a depth that only pain and presence can create. You don't speak to be heard, you speak because you carry revelation. That's what refinement births. A vessel that is clean, ready, and filled with divine purpose. And now, as I begin to position you again, you'll feel the difference. The pressure won't crush you like it once did. The opinions won't shake your identity. The doors that open won't distract you, they'll serve your assignment. Because you've been through the fire, and instead of being destroyed, you came out refined, stronger, sharper, settled in me. They thought you disappeared, but what they didn't see was the transformation happening in the secret place. They saw distance. I saw development. They saw silence. I saw sacred preparation. And now, when they see you again, they'll feel the weight of what you carry. They'll realize you weren't removed, you were refined. And what's coming next will reveal why the process was so necessary. You're not returning the same. You're rising refined by fire, released with purpose, and ready for more. There were things, people, habits, and even good intentions that once filled your life so tightly that you didn't realize how much space they were taking up. Some of it looked harmless. Some even felt like blessings. But slowly, they began to pull your attention away from me, not in loud rebellion, but in quiet erosion. The constant movement, the unending striving, the relationships that drained more than they poured, these things dulled your clarity. They didn't seem dangerous, but they diluted your devotion. And I love you too much to leave you distracted when destiny is calling. So I started removing. Gently at first, then more firmly. You didn't always understand it. You felt the shift and wondered if you had done something wrong. But it wasn't punishment, it was purification. I was creating margin so that what I've planted within you could rise without competition. What I placed in your spirit was getting buried beneath noise. So I silenced what was stealing your focus, not to hurt you, but to help you see. In the moment, it may have felt like loss. Friendships faded. Invitations stopped. Opportunities were withheld. Patterns you used to lean on suddenly didn't satisfy anymore. And for a time, the absence felt like abandonment. But in that silence, something beautiful began to stir. My voice, my presence, my whispers in the quiet. The things I had deposited in you long ago, seeds of calling, identity, peace, and power, began to push through the surface. And slowly, you realized you hadn't lost your way. You were just being cleared of the clutter that kept you from seeing who you really are in me. You were never meant to carry so much that you couldn't hear my voice. You weren't designed to be overwhelmed by noise when I've given you a spirit of discernment. That's why I removed what wasn't aligned. I made space for strength. I made room for revelation. And now, what once distracted you no longer draws you. You see it for what it is, not evil but empty. Not terrible but temporary. It served its purpose, but it can't go where I'm taking you next. The distractions made your spirit feel heavy, The clarity I'm bringing will make your steps feel light. Because in that space of surrender, I've awakened something greater. A new hunger. A fake depth. A vision so precise that even the old temptations don't carry the same weight anymore. And now, what I deposited in you is starting to shine. The fire in your belly. The compassion in your heart. The boldness in your voice. A wisdom that doesn't come from experience alone, but from walking closely with me. I've been cultivating these things while the world around you shifted. And now, as I begin to open new doors, you'll walk through them without distraction. You won't need to ask for permission from those I've released from your life. You won't second-guess yourself based on outdated versions of your identity. You'll move with clarity because what's inside you has been revealed by fire, not flattery. And as others witness the peace and power you now carry, they'll ask, where did that come from? But you will know it was always there. I planted it, and I protected it. And the moment I removed what no longer served you, it began to rise. So don't grieve what's gone. Don't chase what I've already cleared. That season did what it needed to do. And now, the spotlight is on what I've placed within you. Your gifts, your voice, your discernment, your anointing. And with every step forward, more will be revealed. You've been refined. You've been cleared. And now, what I planted in secret will produce fruit in full view. There were days when you felt behind. Not just behind in life, but behind everyone else. You watched others launch, rise, celebrate, and progress while you waited. You questioned why your steps felt slower, why doors seemed to take longer to open, why promises hadn't yet shown up in your reality. You started comparing timelines, measuring your journey against theirs, wondering if somehow you missed the moment meant for you. But I want to remind you, you're not late. You're not delayed. You're not overlooked. You are exactly where I need you to be. Because your life isn't following the world's calendar, it's unfolding by divine appointment. I've never been in a rush. I don't operate by earthly clocks. I'm not moved by countdowns or social pressures. I work through process, and every process has a pace. And the pace I've chosen for you is perfect. It may feel slow at times, especially when you're eager to move forward, but the slow work is where the strongest roots grow. I've been building a foundation beneath you that can carry the weight of where I'm taking you. If I rushed it, you'd arrive unready. But I love you too much to let you get to the door before you're prepared to walk through it. Every moment you thought was wasted was actually filled with preparation. While others were racing ahead, I was refining you, aging you, healing you, deepening your understanding of who I am and who you are in me. What you thought with a pause was actually a process. And that process has positioned you to not only receive the promise but to sustain it. Because I'm not just giving you something temporary, I'm establishing something eternal. And when I move, I do it with fullness, not fragments. The world celebrates fast results, but heaven celebrates faithful endurance. You kept going when it felt like nothing was moving. You remained when the road felt empty. You didn't throw away the calling just because the timeline confused you. And because you trusted me in the delay, you're about to experience the kind of breakthrough that doesn't need explanation. It will be undeniable. The timing of your testimony will silence every doubt, both internal and external. Those who assumed you were behind will realize you were simply being aligned. And here's what they won't understand: your delay was your protection. I kept certain things out of reach until your spirit was ready to carry them. I blocked some opportunities because they would have drained you instead of developed you. I shut certain doors not because you were unqualified, but because they weren't part of your ordained path. And now, what I'm releasing is not just on time, it's perfectly timed. It will land with precision. It will fall into place effortlessly. It will come with peace, not striving. And you'll know this isn't late. This is right on schedule. So don't compare your steps to anyone else's. Their journey isn't your measure. My plan for you is custom-made. And though others may seem ahead now, you will soon realize there are no shortcuts to what I'm giving you. You will not miss your moment. You will not be bypassed. I'm not behind. I'm deliberate. And because you waited for me, I'm about to exceed what you thought was possible. They'll see it and wonder how everything unfolded so perfectly. And they'll say, it's like everything aligned at once. And you'll smile, because you'll know it didn't happen all at once, it happened right on time. My time. Heaven's time. Your time. You're not late, you're exactly where I want you. And what's coming next has been waiting for this moment. You didn't always see it, but there were people and powers actively working against your path. Some were subtle, masking their interference behind polite smiles and quiet conversations. Others were bold, making decisions meant to stall you, speaking words intended to shrink you, moving pieces behind closed doors in hopes of boxing you in. They didn't just doubt you, they resisted you. They saw your potential and were threatened. They noticed your light and attempted to dim it. They sensed my hand on you, and instead of honoring it, they tried to hinder it. They assumed that because they had access, they had authority. That because they were positioned near you, they could prevent what I was doing in you. But what they didn't understand is that no plan formed by man can override what heaven has decreed. While they placed obstacles in your path, I was laying blueprints beneath their feet. I was designing a new way, one they couldn't detect, control, or block. You see, I don't need to confront every adversary to move my will forward. I can build around them. I can shift timelines, change environments, create connections, and reroute purpose in a way that makes their resistance irrelevant. They tried to wall you in, but I extended your borders beyond their reach. They tried to gatekeep what they thought was theirs, but I carve out new territory just for you. You didn't have to fight them because I was already working beyond them. I watched as you kept your integrity. I saw how you chose peace instead of conflict. You didn't lower yourself to their level. You didn't retaliate. You didn't manipulate. You stayed faithful, even while being falsely limited. And because you stayed low, I'm raising you high. You trusted me to handle what was never yours to battle. You didn't chase open doors, I became your access. I took every rejection and built a new room. I took every delay and turned it into deeper development. They tried to orchestrate your limits, but I redefined your launch. And now, what I've constructed is beyond their influence, beyond their understanding, beyond their ability to touch. This next season will make it clear their block was powerless. The evidence will be undeniable. You're walking into fulfillment that bypasses systems. You're stepping into favor that doesn't make sense to those who tried to hold you back. And here's what makes it even more powerful: you're not rising with bitterness. You're rising with grace. You'll remember what they did, but you won't carry the sting of it. Because your heart was never anchored in their approval. You didn't need their endorsement, you and my hand. And now, what I've built will silence every assumption. Not through vengeance, but through visible transformation. The doors I'm opening now were never theirs to guard. The table I've prepared was set without their permission. The path I designed was not drawn within their walls, it was paved by my word. And as you move forward, you'll no longer feel the weight of their resistance. You will feel the wind of my spirit. You will feel momentum where you once felt opposition. And with every step, you'll realize, I didn't just protect your promise, I preserved your peace. So don't look back. Don't rehearse the rejection. Don't replay what they tried to do. Look at what I've done. Look at where you are. You didn't need to push them aside. I simply lifted you above the walls they built. And what I'm building now cannot be blocked, broken, or bypassed because it was never about them. It was always about me and you. My plan. My process. My promise. And it is still unfolding, stronger than ever. They thought your silence meant surrender. They assumed your delay was defeat. When your name disappeared from their conversations and your presence was no longer seen in the places you once stood, they concluded your story had ended. They didn't see the depth of what was happening behind the veil. They didn't understand that what looked like absence was actually protection. I was covering you not because you were weak, but because you were valuable. I wrapped you in my presence when the world tried to dismiss you. I placed a shield around your process when critics were circling and eyes were watching for evidence of your collapse. They counted you out, but I was counting your growth. They based their conclusions on visibility. I based my movements on purpose. They used their limited perception to write you off, but I used that very moment to write you deeper into my divine plan. While they talked, I was transforming. While they forgot you, I was fortifying you. You were never out of the picture, you were under my wing. And that's why you didn't break. That's why you didn't quit. That's why, even when you felt unseen, you were still covered in a glory they couldn't take from you. I didn't need them to believe in you to bless you. I didn't need them to support you to sustain you. Your value has never been based on human recognition, it's been anchored in heavenly design. I kept you from stages that weren't ready to carry the weight of your anointing. I closed doors that would have led you into compromise. I disrupted relationships that would have drained your calling. I removed distractions disguised as opportunities and people disguised as support. And though you didn't always understand the loss, now you're beginning to see the purpose. What felt like abandonment was actually alignment. I wasn't punishing you, I was preparing you. I wasn't holding you back, I was holding you close. When others moved on, I remained. When your name was no longer echoed in the rooms you once filled, I whispered it in heavenly places. I never stopped speaking over you. I never stopped watching over you. And while they crossed your name off their list, I carve it deeper into my promise. Because when I cover you, it's never to hide you in shame, it's to prepare you in safety. No storm, no rumor, no rejection could get past my covering. They thought you disappeared, but I was developing a depth in you that doesn't need to shout for attention. I was clothing you with authority no man can strip away. I was equipping you with discernment that no spotlight could teach. And now, the covering is lifting. Slowly, steadily, I'm revealing the work I've done in you. They will see a strength they never expected. They will encounter a grace they can't explain. They'll look at you and wonder how you endured, how you kept going, how you came back better, stronger, wiser. And they'll realize they counted you out too soon. What they thought was the end was just the beginning of the unveiling. But your posture won't be prideful, it will be peaceful. Because you will know it wasn't about proving them wrong, it was about proving me faithful. They'll walk forward with the quiet confidence of someone who knows what it feels like to be covered by God. You'll move without fear, because you've already seen what I can do in the dark. You'll no longer crave their validation, because you've already tasted my affirmation. So lift your head. Not because you need to be seen, but because you're no longer hiding. You were never forgotten. You were never behind. You were simply being kept for such a time as this. They counted you out, but I was counting on your surrender. And now, the covering has done its work. Step forward. The next chapter has already been written in light. You wondered why things slowed down, why your progress felt paused, your prayers unanswered, and your vision suspended in waiting. You were ready to move, to step, to build, yet I kept you still. You thought maybe you missed a sign, took a wrong turn, or lost the momentum you once carried. But in truth, I was the one who called you into the quiet. Because before I release you into your next move, I must first root you in stillness. Not the stillness of passivity, but the stillness of deep trust. The kind that doesn't require constant motion to prove you're making progress. The kind that silences the urge to strive and invites you to listen, to rest, to receive. I didn't stop you because you were unworthy. I slowed you because I was recalibrating your spirit. The stillness was strategic and taught you how to wait without wavering. It trained your soul to anchor in me when everything else was uncertain. When others kept moving and doing and chasing, I taught you to sit and become. And in that place, I reminded you that it's not always about speed, it's about substance. I showed you how to hear my whisper again, to feel the weight of my hand guiding you rather than your own will dragging you. And while the world celebrated busyness, I invited you into depth. Stillness isn't inactivity. It's intimacy. In that pause, I pulled you closer. I stripped away the noise that once distracted you. I revealed what mattered, what didn't, and what needed to be surrendered. I exposed the motives hiding behind movement. And I healed the parts of you that were being driven by insecurity and exhaustion. I cleared your inner space not just to comfort you, but to prepare you. Because your next step isn't just another move, it's a divine shift. And it must be birthed in peace, not pressure. When I move through someone, I don't need them rushing. I need them rooted. And now, because you allowed me to steady you, what you do next will carry a depth others cannot replicate. Your decisions won't be reactive, they'll be led by discernment. Your words won't be impulsive, they'll be saturated in wisdom. Your presence won't be loud, but it will be undeniably powerful. Because you've learned that movement without my direction is noise, but movement from my instruction is impact. You'll begin to see doors open not from force, but from favor. You won't need to push. You won't need to prove. You'll simply step, and everything will align. Because the stillness has trained your spirit to recognize my timing. And now that you're not running ahead, I can entrust you with more. I can give you greater responsibility, deeper influence, wider reach, because I know you won't rush to carry it your way. You'll wait for my whisper. You'll move with my rhythm. And those watching will wonder, how are they doing so much with such calm? They'll see effectiveness without frenzy, grace without grind. They'll look for the hustle, but they'll only find harmony. And that's when they'll realize your strength doesn't come from your effort. It comes from the one who trained you in the quiet. You'll know exactly when to speak, when to act, when to pause, and when to run, because your stillness taught you how to move with heaven's momentum. This is why I held you back. Not to punish you, but to position you. Because this next move needed to be clean, focused, and free of fear. And now it is. You're not just moving, you're being released. Not randomly, but with precision. And everything you do from this point forward will carry the power that only stillness with me can produce. You tried to share it once, maybe twice. You let them see a glimpse of what stirred deep within you, the dream, the direction, the calling you could barely explain. You spoke with excitement, not seeking validation, but simply wanting someone to understand the weight you were carrying. But their reactions were cold. Your eyes filled with doubt. Their words, though subtle, chipped away at your confidence. They called it unrealistic. They called it too big, too late, too different. And slowly, you began to wonder if they were right. If maybe you'd heard wrong. If maybe you were reaching beyond what you were meant to carry. But I never needed them to believe in it. Because I was the one who gave it to you. And I don't breathe vision into you for the sake of their agreement. I breathe vision into you to align you with destiny. What they couldn't see, I had already started. What they mocked in its seed form, I was growing in the unseen. You see, I build in silence. Not to hide it from you, but to protect it while it's vulnerable. The early stages of your vision were never meant for public consumption. They were sacred moments of partnership between me and you. I was constructing what would later stand strong while others assumed nothing was happening. They didn't believe because they weren't meant to. Not everyone is assigned to see your vision before it manifests. Some people only understand what they can control or predict, and your calling threatened that. Others were too consumed with their own journey to see the magnitude of yours. That's why I let you carry it quietly. I didn't allow loud progress because I needed you to grow deeper, not louder. I was more concerned about you becoming the kind of person who could handle the fulfillment than I was about proving a point to your doubters. You didn't need their encouragement to keep building. You needed my strength, and you received it. You kept walking even when no one clapped. You kept sowing when no one noticed. You kept writing, working, creating, praying even when the room was empty. And in that stillness, I was framing something eternal. Brick by brick, layer by layer, I've been establishing what they said would never come. And now, as I begin to reveal it, they'll be shocked. Not just by what you built, but by how deeply it's rooted, by how complete it is, by how beautifully it aligns with what I whispered to you long ago. They will realize you weren't daydreaming, you were downloading. You weren't chasing fantasies, you were carrying instruction. You weren't lost in illusions, you were led by revelation. And what they once rolled their eyes at will now make them lean in and listen. But by then, you won't need their validation, because the vision they once questioned has already proven itself in your process. It doesn't need applause to be authentic. It just needs to be finished. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm finishing what we started in silence. So don't regret the seasons when no one saw it. Don't resent the ones who didn't believe. Their absence gave me room to build without interference. Their silence gave me space to speak. And now, the foundation is ready. The walls are rising. The windows of heaven are opening. You're about to step into the manifestation of what they said would never happen. And when they ask how you did it, you won't point to them, you'll point to me. Because I was building it in the background while they were questioning your future. Your vision was never too much. It was exactly what I designed. And now, what once looked invisible will become undeniable. They didn't believe. But I did. And I always will. There was a time when you were surrounded by sound. Compliments, comments, encouragements, even the praise of others echoed around you. Some of it felt uplifting, even necessary. But slowly, without even noticing, your heart began to depend on the noise. The approval became fuel. The reactions became reassurance. And even though you still loved me, the voices of others began to influence your pace, your confidence, your direction. So I stepped in not to shame you, but to save you. I removed the applause. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't rejection. It was a recalibration. I silenced the noise so you could rediscover the voice that mattered most, mine. Because applause can be a beautiful sound, but it's a dangerous compass. It can make you chase performance instead of presence, recognition instead of revelation. And what I've called you to do requires clarity, not clamor. It requires that you recognize my whisper even when the crowd falls silent. It requires you to move when no one is cheering and obey even when no one is watching. So I stripped away the stage. I allowed the silence. I pulled you back not to isolate you, but to realign you. In that quiet space, you discovered how much my voice can carry. You realized that one word from me outweighs 1,000 from them. You learned to be still without being stuck, and to walk forward without needing to be seen. I began teaching you again, not through public affirmation, but through private instruction. I reminded you that your worth isn't rooted in their reaction, but in my choice to call you mine. And while the applause was gone, I never left. I was closer than ever, shaping, refining, preparing you for something greater. I was training your ears to listen deeper, training your spirit to trust in stillness, teaching your heart to remain faithful even in obscurity. Because where I'm taking you next cannot be built on performance. It must be grounded in identity. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to walk with me. The platform will return, but your posture will be different. The praise may come, but it will move you the same way. Because you've been anchored. You've heard my voice in the quiet, and now no amount of noise can replace what was planted there. Soon, they will see your rise again. But this time, it won't be fueled by validation, it will be guided by vision. You will walk in rooms and carry peace that doesn't waver with opinion. You'll speak words that don't seek reaction but release truth. You'll lead from a place of wholeness, not hunger. Because the silence taught you what applause never could, how to remain in me. You no longer perform. You carry presence. You no longer crave praise. You steward purpose. And the best part, now you're free. Free from needing their cheers to feel chosen. Free from depending on their support to feel secure. Free from striving to stay relevant and content simply being obedient. The silence liberated you. And when you look back on the seasons where the claps faded and the noise stopped, you'll no longer feel the sting of loneliness. You'll feel the sweetness of intimacy. You'll remember how I pulled you away from the crowd to restore your confidence in me. This is why I removed the applause, not to strip your joy, but to solidify your identity. Because now, when I raise you again, it will be on a foundation that cannot be shaken. You'll know how to stand when they celebrate you, and how to stand when they don't. You'll know the sound of my voice so clearly that no opinion will drown it out again. And that, my child, is the lesson they never saw coming. You don't just carry influence, you carry intimacy. And that is the source of your strength. There were seasons when it felt like everything around you went dark. What once bloomed now looked like it withered. What once moved now stood still. People faded. Opportunities dried up. Visibility vanished. And it felt like you had been pushed into the earth and forgotten. The silence, the stillness, the depth, it didn't feel like a pause. It felt like a burial. And you wondered, was that it? Did I miss my moment? Was that the end? But what looked like a grave was actually the beginning of growth. Because I never buried you, I planted you. Burial ends a thing, but planting initiates something. And the difference is what happens next. When I plant, I don't walk away, I nurture. I water. I weigh. I cover. I speak to the seed even when it's not visible. And you, my beloved, were never left alone. I placed you in the ground because the next season of your life required depth. You prayed for impact. You asked me for influence. You told me you were ready to carry more. But more cannot grow in shallow soil. So I sent you low, not to hide you, but to anchor you. Deep roots are not optional in the life I've called you to live. They are essential. Because when storms come, and they will, you won't be moved by wind. You'll be grounded by truth. You'll know how to stand firm when others fall apart. Because your strength won't come from what's visible. It will come from what's been developed underneath. At quiet time in the dirt. It's where endurance was formed. It's where your identity stopped depending on applause. It's where your discernment matured and your character solidified. No one saw the process. But now, they will see the result. They thought you had disappeared. Some even assumed you failed. But that's only because they couldn't see what I was doing beneath the surface. I do my best work in hidden places. I grow miracles in dark soil. And now, the time is coming when what I planted in you will break through the surface. Slowly, then suddenly. And it won't just be a sprout, it will be a sign. That I was working all along. That I was faithful in every unseen moment. That I never left you to wither, I was building you to withstand. And here's what will make it even more powerful: your growth will look effortless, but it won't be because it was easy. It will be because your roots run deep. You learned to stay when others ran. You learned to trust when things didn't make sense. You remained teachable when you felt overlooked. You worshipped in the dark, not knowing the breakthrough was forming just beneath your feet. And that's why your rising will carry authority. Not noise, but weight. Not hype, but health. Not a performance, but presence. I don't just grow things, I establish them. And now, I'm establishing you. You won't have to prove yourself. The fruit will speak. The consistency will speak. The wisdom will speak. What was once misunderstood will now become undeniable. And the very ones who thought you were done will have to acknowledge that what they assumed was death was actually destiny in process. So don't mourn the seasons of silence anymore. Don't curse the dirt. The soil was sacred. They held you, protected you, formed you. And now, it's releasing you not as who you were, but as who I've made you to be. Stand tall, but stay rooted. Grow upward, but remain grounded. Because what I've planted is about to flourish. And your roots, they're deep enough to handle all of it. There were moments you looked at the clock, at the calendar, at the lives of those around you, and quietly asked me, why not yet? You watched others move forward, step into breakthroughs, walk in what looked like acceleration while your path felt delayed, paused, or even denied. You honored me, obeyed me, trusted me, and yet you remained in the hallway, waiting for the door that never seemed to open. I saw the ache in your patience. I heard the silent cries you didn't let escape your lips. And still, I whispered, wait. Not to torment you, not to tease you, but to prepare you for something that would be too costly if released too soon. I am not so. I am intentional. And everything I've withheld, I've done so out of love, not lack. You see, I never create shallow things. What I birth must last. And lasting greatness takes time. What I'm building through you is not just for the present, it's generational. And anything with deep impact must have deep preparation. You prayed for influence. You asked to carry more. You dreamed of being used to reach others, change lives, leave a mark. But greatness doesn't begin in visibility, it's forged in obscurity. In discipline. In refinement. I couldn't let you carry weight you weren't yet equipped for. I couldn't pour out what your vessel couldn't yet hold. So I delayed not to harm you, but to protect you from premature exposure. If I had opened the door back then, it would have crushed you. Not because you were weak, but because you were still forming. There were parts of you I needed to strengthen, wounds I needed to heal, mindsets I needed to renew. And while you waited, I worked quietly, faithfully, thoroughly. You learned how to remain when others ran, how to hope without proof, how to listen without needing noise. You grew in the shadows so that when the light comes, it won't blind you, it will reveal you. Because what I'm bringing into your hands now requires stewardship, not just excitement. It needs clarity, not just charisma. And you, my beloved, are ready not because of time, but because of transformation. You didn't just age, you evolved. You didn't just survive, you surrendered. You allowed me to cut away what couldn't go with you. You stayed humble while being misunderstood. You remained pure when compromise would have been easier. And now, the foundation is set. You are not who you were when you first asked for this. You are wiser, tougher, stronger, Yabu. And now, what I've been preparing in secret is being released in purpose. The doors will open, but they will not overwhelm you. The platforms will come, but they will not change you. The responsibilities will increase, but they will not break you. Because I didn't rush your greatness, I refined it. And that's why it will last. Not because of favor alone, but because of the fire you walked through to carry it well. So no, you weren't overlooked. You were safeguarded. You weren't forgotten. You were being fortified. You weren't late. You were being aligned with my perfect timing. And as everything begins to unfold, you'll look back and thank me for the delays. You'll praise me for the pause. You'll realize that what you once called slow was actually sacred. This is not just a new chapter, it's a new authority. One built on trust, not trend. One birthed in depth, not demand. And now, the greatness I've placed within you is rising, not rushed, but ready. And the world is about to see what I saw all along. They didn't just doubt you, they declared your limitations. They looked at the pieces of your past and tried to predict your future. Your vision was small, clouded by assumptions, tainted by what they thought they knew. They measured your potential by human standards and overlooked the one who authored your design. They saw your broken moments and assumed that was the end. They heard your silence and mistook it for surrender. They witnessed the delay and called it denial. But while they were writing you off, I was writing a script they could never comprehend. What they called the conclusion, I was just calling the setup. Because now, everything is in place. The unseen preparation, the quiet refinement, the hidden healing, the restructuring of your soul, the reordering of your pace, the realignment of your focus. It was all for this. I've set the stage, and it doesn't look like what they expected. There are no flashing lights, no loud announcements. Just me, you, and a divine unfolding that will leave no room for confusion about who made it happen. They said it couldn't be done, that the door would never open, that the dream was too far-fetched, that your time had passed. But now, I am preparing to display what only I could accomplish. And this time, you won't rise through effort alone, you'll rise by design. Not because you forced your way in, but because I lifted you at the appointed time. What once seemed out of reach is now within grasp, not because your surroundings changed, but because your spirit was made ready. I placed you in alignment with divine timing. Nothing missing, nothing lacking. Just my favor resting where faith remained. And yes, they will see it, not out of revenge but as a revelation. That what I promise, I perform. That what I speak, I sustain. Your life is about to become a canvas of fulfilled prophecy, not in fragments but in fullness. They will witness doors open that no one can close. They will see influence flow through your life without striving. They will hear wisdom pour from your mouth and wonder where it came from. They'll try to retrace your steps and realize there is no blueprint that explains what's happening, only my hand. You don't need to defend the years of waiting. You don't need to explain the seasons of silence. The fruit will speak. The favor will confirm. And my glory will cover it all. This stage was not built for performance, it was built for purpose. You won't walk on it with arrogance, but with assurance. Not to show off, but to shine the light I placed within you. And when the eyes of those who doubted begin to open, they will have to confront this truth. What man calls impossible, I call inevitable. Because your journey was never about proving them wrong, it was about proving me faithful. I let their voices grow loud so my voice could grow louder in you. I let the room empty so your roots could go deeper. I let the platform wait so your posture could be perfected. And now, the fullness of time has come. Not rushed, not delayed, right on cue. The curtains are drawing back, not to spotlight you but to reveal what obedience looks like when it's met with heaven's yes. So walk forward. The lights don't have to blind you when you've been walking in the brightness of my presence. The noise won't shake you when you've been trained in silence. And the crowd won't change you when your character has already been chiseled in the shadows. The stage is not a surprise, it's a setup. And what they called impossible is now unfolding because I never needed them to believe in it. I just needed you to stay with me until it was time. And now it's time. I saw what was taken from you. The time that slipped through your fingers. The relationships that walked away without closure. The resources that vanished just when you needed them most. The open doors that suddenly closed. And the dreams that felt like they died before they had the chance to breathe. You mourned those losses. Quietly, honestly, faithfully. You asked me why. Not in bitterness, but in longing. You wanted to understand how something that seemed aligned could be stripped away so quickly. You searched for reasons. You tried to make sense of the subtraction. And all the while, I was watching over the space that loss left behind because I knew what I was preparing to place there. You see, I'm not in the business of simple restoration. I don't just return what was lost, I replace it with something greater. When I allow something to be removed, it's never without purpose. And when I step in to give again, I don't hand you what once was, I deliver what always should have been. What you called loss, I called release. Not because what you had wasn't good, but because what I prepared is so much better. I don't recycle pain into replicas, I transform it into revelation. I don't revisit past chapters, I write new ones filled with details you never knew to hope for. What you thought you'd never see again, joy, clarity, strength, opportunity, it's not just returning. It's returning multiplied. But it won't look like the old. It won't come wrapped in familiar packaging. Because I'm not rebuilding what was, I'm revealing what's next. And what's next is saturated in my promises, not your past. The wounds made space for the wonder. The ache created room for abundance. The tears softened the ground so the new seeds could take root. You've grown since the loss. You've matured through the silence. You've gained wisdom that no book could teach and developed discernment that no crowd could offer. So what I'm giving you now must match the new version of you. The one that knows how to carry favor without pride. The one that no longer needs applause to feel validated. The one who has learned to lean into my voice above every other. That's why I waited. That's why I didn't give it back when you asked. I wasn't withholding to punish you, I was preparing the more. And now, you're about to see what that preparation was for. You'll step into spaces that don't just restore what was taken but redefine what's possible. You'll receive opportunities that weren't delayed, they were being tailored. You'll experience peace that doesn't revisit what was lost, but rejoices in what has arrived. People will look at your life and ask how you came back from what tried to break you. And you will smile because you will know this wasn't a comeback. It was a resurrection. I'm not returning the fragments. I'm unveiling the fullness. I'm not handing you what left, I'm delivering what's been waiting. And it will exceed your imagination. It will stretch your capacity. It will surprise even your faith. Not because you demanded it, but because you trusted me when there were no answers. And now, that trust is about to be met with overflow. So lift your eyes. What's ahead is not compensation, it's culmination. It's not replacement, it's revelation. I saw the loss. I counted the tears. I held the grief. But I also wrote the next chapter. And it does not end with almost. It ends with abundance. Prepare to receive not what was stolen, but what's been divinely reserved. Because I'm not restoring your past, I'm fulfilling your promise. And this is only the beginning. They'll see the shine of your life when my promise begins to manifest. They'll see the doors opening, the fruit overflowing, the influence expanding, and they'll wonder how you got here. They'll see the favor surrounding you and assume it came suddenly. But what they won't see is the fire that forged it. What they won't know is the quiet battles, the unseen sacrifices, the relentless obedience when no one else was looking. They'll witness the glory, but only you and I will ever fully know the cost of the journey. People are quick to celebrate outcomes, but they rarely understand the process that preceded it. They'll see your peace, but they won't know it came through nights of weeping and prayers with no immediate answers. They'll hear your wisdom, but they won't know it was born out of countless moments of confusion, silence, and surrender. They'll admire your strength, but they won't realize it was built through seasons of deep weakness where my grace became your only anchor. The glory they're about to witness wasn't gifted without refinement, it was shaped in private, through fire, pressure, and unwavering trust. I shielded your story from the eyes of those who wouldn't understand it. Because if they saw the in-between, they might have judged your journey instead of respecting your calling. I allowed the hard chapters to unfold in quiet places, so the enemy couldn't use spectators to distract your process. While others lived loudly, you walked closely with me. And because you remained faithful in the shadows, now I will bring forth the kind of glory that cannot be ignored. But when it comes, you will boast, you will remember. You'll remember how many times you thought about quitting. How many prayers felt like they evaporated into silence. How many doors closed just as you were about to walk through. You'll remember the loneliness, the warfare, the whispers of fear and doubt. You'll remember the cost. And in that remembering, your heart will remain soft. You'll know this glory wasn't earned, it was entrusted. And that's why I can trust you with it now. Because I've seen what's behind the curtain. I've seen you praise me when the promise felt far. I've seen you obey when your hands were empty. I've seen you believe when the evidence screamed otherwise. And now, as I begin to reveal what's been hidden, as I begin to unfold the visible proof of what we built in silence, they'll see the outcome, but only you, and I will share the origin. And that is sacred. It's what will keep you grounded when applause arrives. It's what will keep you focused when platforms grow. It's what will keep you in alignment when influence increases. Because glory that is not rooted in story becomes performance. But your story has been soaked in presence, prayer, and process. You didn't skip steps. You didn't chase shortcuts. You walked through every valley, climbed every unseen hill, held on to me when logic told you to let go. And now the glory will rest not just on your life, but within your life. It will be seen in the way you carry peace, in the way you speak life, in the way you move with compassion, in the way your light shines without needing to compete. They will admire the radiance, but they won't recognize that it came from being refined. So don't be surprised when people admire the final chapter, but never ask about the pages before. That's okay. You and I know. We wrote it together. And that's what makes the glory real. That's what makes it pure. That's what makes it eternal. This is not the result of ambition, it's the fruit of surrender. And while others may only witness the visible, you'll carry the invisible history we built in every hidden place. They'll see the glory, but only you and I will know the depth of the story. And that is where my glory shines the brightest, in vessels who remember who held the pen. There were people you thought would always be there. Some walked with you through early seasons. Others spoke words that made you feel seen. There were moments when their presence brought comfort, and their support felt like confirmation. You imagined them standing beside you when the breakthrough arrived. But then, slowly or suddenly, they left. Some slipped away quietly. Others exited with noise. And each departure left the space the ache of question. You tried to make sense of it. You retraced conversations. You asserted for what you did wrong. But it wasn't your failure, it was my refinement. I let them leave. Not because you weren't enough, but because the next phase of your journey required focus, not familiarity. The kind of growth I was calling you into demanded that you learn the difference between company and covenant. Some people were assigned for a season, not a lifetime. And if I had allowed them to stay, their influence would have interfered with your next level of intimacy with me. You would have leaned on their opinion when I needed you to lean on my voice. You would have run to their counsel when I wanted to show you that I am your wonderful counselor. You would have found identity in their presence instead of mine. So yes, I allowed the separation. I permitted the silence. I let the connections unravel. Because I knew what was coming, and I knew you couldn't take everyone with you. Some hearts are not equipped to steward your calling. Some spirits can't handle the weight of your assignment. Your absence isn't a curse, it's a clearing. I made room so you could discover the power of walking with me when no one else remains. I showed you how to stand, not with a crowd behind you, but with my spirit within you. And in that lonely place, you found something deeper. You found strength that did come from affirmation. You found clarity that wasn't filtered through human opinion. You discovered that my presence is enough, more than enough. The foundation we built when others left is what you're standing on now. Because when you stood with me in the absence of applause, you learned what it meant to be truly anchored. When you chose to stay faithful without an audience, you became a vessel I could trust with more. You didn't chase them. You didn't beg for attention. You cried, yes. You questioned, absolutely. But you stayed. You chose me. And in doing so, you crossed a threshold most never reach, the place where your walk is no longer fueled by external support, but by internal conviction. That's where real authority is born. That's where unshakable identity is forged. That's where glory rests not on the one with the biggest following, but on the one who follows me when the road narrows. Now watch what I do through your life. Those who left will have no understanding of what's rising from the ground they walked away from. Because what they thought was the end of the story was only the removal of the scaffolding. I went building something solid, something rooted in me, not them. And now, that structure is about to emerge. Draw. Daddy. Sacred. And when people wonder how you became so unwavering, so full of grace and depth and insight, they won't see the empty seats. But you'll remember. You'll remember who left. And you'll also remember who stayed. Me. The one who never walked away. The one who held your tears and rebuilt your trust. The one who filled every vacant space with purpose. The one who stood with you when no one else would and turned your solitude into strength. So don't grieve the departures any longer. Don't wish back what I intentionally removed. You're not alone. You're aligned. And what I'm doing now is proof that standing with me was always enough. You didn't understand why so much slipped through your fingers. Dreams you nurtured. Relationships you protected. Resources you worked hard for. Seasons you invested in with hope, only to watch them unravel. It felt like loss. It felt like stripping. It felt like everything you tried to hold onto was being pulled away, piece by piece, until your hands trembled with emptiness. You looked down and saw nothing left. And in that vulnerable moment, you asked me, why take what I needed? But I was never trying to deprive you, I was making space. I saw what you couldn't. I saw what those things were doing to your grip. They weren't all wound, but they were all temporary. Some were beautiful but too small. Some were blessings, but they had begun to take my place. Others were distractions disguised as stability. And I love you too much to let you build your future on foundations that won't last. So I stepped in, not to punish but to position. Not to break you, but to bless you with something far greater. I had to empty your hands so your heart could be free. Because what I'm about to pour into your life cannot coexist with clutter. Eternal things do not rest in crowded hands. The kind of glory I'm releasing carries weight, and only surrendered hands can hold it. You cried over what was removed, but you haven't yet seen what's being released. You've been asking for me to fulfill the promise, but I had to first prepare the vessel. Not by giving you more, but by taking away what no longer aligned with your purpose. What looked like loss was alignment in disguise. What felt like theft was actually a sacred exchange. I wasn't emptying your life, I was pruning it for multiplication. I was removing the things you thought you needed, so I could give you what you were truly born for. Things not made of fading success or fleeting praise, but of kingdom impact. Unshakable peace. Purpose that lives beyond the present moment. Joy that's not attached to outcomes. Wisdom that doesn't wither in storms. Love that flows from my spirit, not from performance or approval. And now, your hands, though once heavy with grief, are ready. Ready to carry what no man can take. Ready to steward revelation. Ready to walk in assignments not driven by ambition, but directed by divine design. Ready to receive not just resources, but responsibility. You've passed through the fire of surrender, and now I can trust you with what matters most. Because now you know that nothing in your grip is greater than the presence of the one who gives it. Soon, what I place in your hands will begin to overflow, not just materially but spiritually. You will hold insight others search a lifetime for. You will speak words that bring healing to the broken. You will lead not with force, but with the calm confidence of someone who's held both loss and grace and knows the weight of both. You'll begin to bless others not from a place of striving, but from a well that never runs dry. Because now, your source is eternal. And people will ask you, how did you bounce back? How did you get it all? And you will smile not because you got everything you wanted, but because you received everything you truly needed. You'll tell them, I let go. I opened my hands. And God filled them with what I never imagined. This is the season where what I pour in will not just satisfy you, it will sustain you. You no longer have to chase. You no longer have to cling. Just stay open. Keep your hands lifted, your heart soft, and your eyes fixed on me. I emptied your hands, but only to fill them with something that will never be taken again. Something eternal. Something holy. Something that carries heaven's fingerprint and earth's assignment. There were times when the resources dried up, when the doors didn't open, when your strength felt like it was running out. You knew how to believe in abundance, but in that season, it seemed like everything you needed was always one step out of reach. The provision came late. The answers were quiet. The support disappeared. You looked around and saw empty spaces where fullness used to live. And it shook you not just because of the material absence, but because it made you wonder if you had been forgotten. But I was there all along, not withholding as punishment but as a teacher. I let you walk through lack not to break you but to show you what truly sustains. I allowed the emptiness to reveal the truth about what you were depending on. You didn't realize how tightly you were holding on to the security of having enough. Enough money. Enough plans. Enough support. Enough backup. But I wasn't trying to take from you, I was inviting you into a revelation you would never discover in comfort, that I am enough when everything else runs out. It's easy to trust me when your hands are full, but I wanted you to know that I'm just as present when they are empty. That when the world says you're under-resourced, heaven says you're fully supplied. That when the bank account is low, your spiritual account is overflowing. That when human help fails, I never leave your side. You see, lack isn't the absence of my presence, it's the sharpening of your perspective. I used it to simplify your vision, to strip away distractions, to remind you where your true source lies. In the wilderness, I became your daily bread. In the drought, I taught you how to draw from wells that others couldn't see. In the silent spaces, I tuned your ears to my whisper. When no one else showed up, I showed you I was already there. When the provision didn't arrive the way you expected, I met your need in ways you never imagined. And through it all, your faith didn't wither, it deepened. You began to walk with a new kind of dependence, not rooted in outcomes, but rooted in me. And now, because you've walked through the valley of lack and found me in it, you are no longer afraid of empty places. You're no longer shaken when things are delayed. You don't panic when resources shift, because now you know I've never failed you. I sustained you when it made no sense. I carried you when you had nothing left to give. I whispered hope into moments so dry you thought they would bury you. And through it all, I remained. Not distant, not silent, just closer than ever, waiting for you to realize that even when nothing else adds up, I still complete you. You didn't walk through lack to be left lacking, you walked through it to be filled with something eternal. A confidence that doesn't come from surplus but from surrender. A peace that isn't tied to possessions but to presence. A joy that rises from knowing your identity isn't based on having, it's based on being mine. And now, as I begin to increase what surrounds you, you won't cling to it, you'll carry it with freedom. Because you've already learned, what you need most isn't something I give, it's me. So when others marvel at your calm in crisis, at your gratitude in scarcity, at your steady steps when things around you are uncertain, they'll ask how you do it. And you'll say, I've already been through the place where nothing was enough and I found out that God is. That is the treasure I've given you. That is the abundance you now carry. You didn't walk through lack for nothing, you walked through it to discover that my presence is the richest provision of all. And from here forward, you'll never walk afraid of losing anything because you've already gained everything that truly matters. They didn't understand why you kept believing when everything looked broken. They couldn't grasp why you still prayed when nothing seemed to change. They noticed your declarations, your hope, your unwavering trust, and some responded with silence, while others responded with sarcasm. You heard the whispers, they are still holding on. You saw the smirks when you said, God's not done. Some even mocked you openly, not always with words, but with raised eyebrows and dismissive glances. You felt their disbelief. You felt their judgment. But still you stood. Not because you had all the answers, but because you had me. They saw your faith as foolish because they couldn't see the foundation it stood on. They mistook your persistence for naivety. They assumed you were living in denial when you were actually walking in truth. You weren't ignoring the facts, you were anchored in the promise. And though you were trembling some days and tired on others, you never let go of what I said. Even when your heart broke. Even when doors didn't open. Even when it looked like nothing was moving. You didn't let their disbelief become your direction. You stayed in position. You stayed with me. And I took note of that. I saw the tears you didn't let fall in front of them. I heard the prayers that were more groans than words. I watched you get up day after day with no guarantee other than my voice saying, keep going. And now, that faith is about to speak not in loud shouts but in visible results. Not through arguments, but through evidence. Not because you defended yourself, but because I've decided it's time for what was hidden to be revealed. They won't be able to deny what's coming. The fruit will be undeniable. The shift will be undeniable. The doors I open, the blessings I pour, the transformation I release, none of it will be subtle. And it won't come through the methods they understand. Because the same faith they mocked will now become the very thing that explains what logic can't. They'll see the turnaround, the restoration, the increase, the elevation, and they'll know you did get here by chance. They'll know you weren't lucky. They'll know something greater was guiding you all along. And you won't need to say, "I told you so." Your life will say it for you. Your stability in stormy places, your peace in pressure, your joy in delay, those are already speaking. But now, the promises are going to speak too. The things they said were impossible are about to become undeniable. The very areas they used to question are going to be the places I glorify myself. They laughed when you planted in drought, but they're about to witness harvest. They doubted your direction, but now they'll ask how to find theirs. But your heart won't hold bitterness. You won't respond with pride. You'll respond with humility, because you will know what it cost to believe when belief was painful. You'll remember how you clung to faith when there was no sign. And that's why your reward will not just be in what you receive, it will be in who you've become. Rooted. Shaken. Not because of applause, but because of assurance. So don't be surprised when they start to listen. The same ones who doubted will become curious. The same ones who dismissed you will begin to watch. Because what I'm doing through you is bigger than vindication, it's invitation. An invitation for them to encounter the same God you trusted in silence. An invitation for them to witness what happens when someone chooses faith over fear, promise over pressure, and me over everything. Let your life speak now. You don't have to explain. You don't have to perform. You just have to continue. Keep walking. Keep worshiping. Keep believing. Because the laughter they once released is about to be silenced by the sound of your faith becoming sight. They watched you walk through seasons that looked like nothing more than struggle. They saw the surface loss, delay, setbacks, rejection, and assumed that life was simply dealing you a difficult hand. They didn't realize what was really happening. They didn't know that in the midst of the chaos, you were taking a test. Not the kind written on paper or judged by people, but one authored by heaven and evaluated in silence. A test of your heart. A test of your faith. A test of your character when no one was looking, and your integrity when everyone was. You didn't get to prepare for it like others prepare for opportunities. There was no schedule, no announcement, no warning. Just life unfolding, and you having to choose over and over again whether you would trust me, follow me, obey me, even when nothing made sense. You didn't know it at the time, but every moment of pressure, every trial, every sacrifice became a question I asked you. Will you still believe me here? And with trembling hands and weary eyes, your answer was always, yes. You passed when you stayed faithful while others faded. You passed when you spoke kindness when offense would have been easier. You passed when you served in silence when no one clapped, when no one saw. You passed when you didn't chase shortcuts, when you didn't compromise to escape the waiting. You passed not because you were perfect, but because you were persistent. You passed because you didn't let the weight of the process make you forfeit the promise. And I took note of every answer, not with a red pen, but with the tenderness of a father watching his child grow stronger in the fire. They thought you were just surviving, but I knew you were qualifying. They didn't see what was being measured. They didn't know the value I placed on your secret choices. While they looked for the visible, I was watching your invisible yes. I saw how you gave when it cost you. I saw how you forgave when it broke you. I saw how you stood when standing meant standing alone. These were not random moments, these were sacred answers on the pages of a test heaven assigned to you. And now that it's completed, I'm moving you into what comes after. Promotion. Elevation. Establishment. Not because of popularity, but because of proven trust. I can give you more now, not just because you're gifted, but because you've shown me you can be trusted when it's hard. I can increase your territory because you've proven your stewardship. I can release more favor, more influence, more doors because I watched you pass the test behind the curtain, and now it's time for the unveiling. They won't understand how it's happening. They won't know why you've been chosen. But I will. I saw you all. I scored it. I certified it. You did campaign for this moment. You were cultivated for it. You were tested in secret. And now you will be trusted in public. And when the platform comes, when the new opportunities rise, when the blessing flows, they'll wonder how it happened so suddenly. But you'll know it wasn't sudden. It was years of testing that nobody saw. Years of walking with me through valleys. Years of saying yes when you wanted to say no. This next season is not just a breakthrough, it's a reward. It's not just a shift, it's a graduation. You pass the test not to prove your worth, but to prepare for what I'm entrusting you with now. And every time you step into a new room, every time your influence expands, every time your voice reaches farther, remember this. It was your faithfulness in the fire that qualified you for the favor in this moment. To walk forward with quiet confidence. You don't need applause. You don't need to explain. Just keep moving in obedience. Because the test is over, and the results are clear, you passed. And now, the lessons you learned in the dark will lead others into light. There are things I placed on your life that no one can touch. Not because they didn't try, but because I hid them too deep for hands to reach. You've been through seasons where people tried to imitate your light, minimize your voice, silence your influence, and push you into shadows they thought you'd never rise from. You watched others elevate themselves with volume and strategy while you remained still, tucked away, carrying something quiet but holy. You did seek attention, but I was paying attention. And what I gave you in those hidden spaces wasn't for applause. It was anointing. Anointing can't be manufactured. It can't be copied. It can't be taken. It comes from my oil, my altar, my presence. And while others hustled to be heard, you chose to dwell with me. You let me shape you in silence. You let me pour over your wounds instead of parading your pain. You came to me not to be seen, but to be changed. And because of that, what rests on you now isn't just gifting, it's authority. You don't have to shout to shift a room. You don't have to fight for space when you walk in. Because what I've placed on your life speaks for itself. They don't understand how your words carry weight even when few. They wonder how you move so gently yet leave such impact. They notice the doors opening for you that they tried to force open for themselves. But what they can't see is the process behind the anointing. They weren't there in the crushing. When I pressed your heart to extract purity, they didn't witness the surrender, the prayers with no words, the yes when no one else saw the cost. They only see the oil, but they never saw the olive. And that's why they can't steal it. Because they didn't endure what you endured. They didn't yield where you yielded. They didn't stay when it was easier to run. This anointing is not a badge, it's a burden. But it's also a blessing. You carry what can't be faked, what can't be stripped. And as I raise you in this hour, they'll begin to notice something different about you, not your volume, but your vibration. Not your image, but your insight. You carry peace that disarms chaos. You speak life where others manipulate. You bring truth without needing a stage. Because I've made you a vessel of quiet power, refined, filled, and ready. And here's the beauty of it. Your anointing doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you aware. Aware of me. Aware of those I've called you to. Aware of what matters and what doesn't. You're no longer swayed by who notices or who doesn't, because you walk in the confidence of someone who knows heaven is already watching. You don't perform, you release. You don't put, you pour. You don't strive, you flow. And that's why the anointing rests on you the way it does. Because you've made space for me, I now make space for you. This is what they couldn't take from you. This is what they'll have to learn to respect. They may have overlooked you before, thinking your quietness was weakness. But now, the very thing they dismissed is becoming the reason they are drawn to what you carry. They'll realize the still ones are often the most saturated. The unseen ones are often the most equipped. And your presence will speak long before your mouth does. I gave you something they can't explain. Not a spotlight, but a glow. Not control but covering. Not popularity but presence. And as your life continues to unfold, they'll wonder how you command so much by saying so little. They'll ask how you woo things without pushing them. And you'll know it's the oil. It's the fire. It's the overflow of intimacy, not image. So continue in confidence. You're not rising because you're loud, you're rising because you're anointed. And no one can take what they didn't give. I gave it. I sealed it. I'm the one who fills you. And that's why this cannot be stolen. It was never theirs to begin with. They looked at your journey, your delays, your imperfections, and they began to wonder if you were truly chosen. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel the weight of what I whispered into your spirit when no one else was around. Their doubt wasn't always spoken, but you felt it in the way they stopped asking about your progress. You sensed it in the way they overlooked your voice, bypassed your presence, or subtly suggested you should consider something more realistic. They couldn't reconcile what you were carrying with what they thought a calling should look like. But I was never interested in their approval of your purpose. I allowed their questions to surface not to discourage you, but to detach you from the need for validation. I let their opinions grow louder, not to shame you, but to tune your ears to the only voice that matters, mine. I needed you to realize that your calling wasn't assigned in a committee meeting, shaped by public consensus, or limited by who believed in you. It was born in my heart, spoken by my spirit, and sealed by my sovereignty. I didn't need anyone to approve it, I authored it. Yes, they questioned you, and I let them. Because in their doubt, I was deepening your dependence. In their silence, I was sharpening your surrender. I was peeling back the layers of identity that relied on being seen, understood, or applauded by others. I wanted you to learn how to walk with me when no one clapped, how to trust me when no one confirmed, how to keep building even when no one believed. That's where real calling is carved, not in comfort, but in consecration. And you passed the test. You didn't abandon what I spoke just because they didn't echo it. You didn't toss the assignment aside when they rolled their eyes. You didn't trade revelation for acceptance. You held on, quietly, fiercely, faithfully. And now, because you allowed me to confirm you in the absence of human confirmation, I'm about to validate what you carry with undeniable evidence. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove that I was with you all along. I will open the doors they said were shut. I will amplify the voice they said was too small. I will shine light on the vision they said was unrealistic. And I'll do it in such a way that no one can say it was man-made. I will see it was me. I didn't build you through affirmation, I built you through fire. And now what comes forth is unshakable. But your spirit won't rise in arrogance, it will remain in awe. Because you'll remember how painful their questioning felt. How you cried after the conversations that left you doubting what you knew I said. How you almost rewrote your vision to make others more comfortable. But you didn't. You stayed rooted. And now, the fruit is about to speak. You don't have to defend your calling anymore. Your consistency already has. Your integrity already has. Your endurance already has. You walked when it was easier to run. You built when it was easier to break. And now, I am putting my signature on what they tried to erase. Let them wonder. Let them watch. Let them wrestle with the fact that what they questioned is now undeniable. Not because you shouted to be seen, but because you stayed when it felt safer to quit. And when they ask how you were so sure, you'll say, I wasn't always sure of myself, but I was always sure of the one who called me. I let them question you so that when I confirmed you, there'd be no doubt who did it. This calling is mine. And you've carried it well. Now watch as I carry you forward. You didn't demand the spotlight. You didn't force your way forward. While others announced every step, you kept walking in silence. You prayed in rooms no one saw. You served in spaces that didn't celebrate you. You sowed seeds with no audience and trusted me to bring the increase. You didn't compete. You didn't compare. You simply obeyed day by day, moment by moment. Even when it seemed like everyone else was being elevated, you didn't rush. You didn't manipulate the process. You just kept showing up with humility and trust, waiting for me to move instead of trying to make it happen on your own. And I took note of every quiet yes. Every time you chose patience over performance. Every time you let someone else go ahead without bitterness. Every moment you resisted the urge to justify yourself or prove your worth. You thought no one noticed, but heaven did. And now, I'm about to take what was hidden and reveal it with glory. Not to exalt you above others, but to display what I do for those who trust me in the secret place. Your quiet faithfulness has become the foundation for what I'm about to make visible. I'm the one who sees in secret. I'm the one who tests the heart. I'm the one who measures obedience not by noise but by depth. And because you've chosen the narrow road, the slow road, the surrendered road, I will now bring you into a season of open reward. Not because you chased recognition, but because you carried reverence. Not because you pushed your name, but because you lifted mine. They will see you rise, but they won't know how long you waited. They will see the doors open, but they won't understand how many you stood in front of, praying for direction when there was none. They'll admire your strength, not knowing it was built in nights of weakness that only I witnessed. They'll hear your voice now, but they don't know how many times you stayed silent, letting me speak on your behalf. And that's exactly why I can trust you with the reward. Because your heart hasn't changed in the waiting, it's been purified by it. The delay didn't harden you, it humbled you. The silence didn't discourage you, it deepened you. You learned how to be led by my whisper instead of their applause. You learned how to walk in purpose without the pressure to perform. And now, what I'm doing through you will speak louder than anything you could have done for yourself. The doors I'm opening will require your explanation. The favor I'm pouring out won't need your defense. It will be obvious this wasn't the result of strategy or influence. This was the outcome of surrender. You waited quietly. You believed quietly. You hoped quietly. And now, I will honor you openly. Before eyes that once overlooked you. In places that once ignored you. Among people who once doubted you. And not for your glory, but for mine. So they may know what I do with hearts that remain faithful when the world offers none of the rewards. Your waiting was not in vain. Your stillness was not a waste. It was worship. It was warfare. It was alignment. And because you remained in me, even when the process felt long, and the rewards felt far, I will now bring forth fruit that cannot be hidden. This season will look like sudden breakthrough, but it's actually the slow work finally rising to the surface. The reward will be visible. But the real reward, it's what has happened in your heart. It's who you've become. It's how you now walk with peace, with power, with purpose. You waited without striving. Now you'll be established without struggle. Amen.